Welcome to the Weekend Must Watch on Intercut, the weekly show going through all the movies, TV, and entertainment that people just can't cut away from. I'm your co-host Arturo Zurita, and joining me from beyond the wasteland, it's
Ooh.
Zachary Shevich.
Prefer to be known as Immortan Zach from here on out. I just love
Morton,
all the
okay, just straight to
names.
the Morton.
I just love all the names in the Fury Road world. You know, the
Yeah.
like strange Latin phrases or like the
Uh-huh.
toasts, the knowings of the
Mm-hmm.
wasteland. It's just
The
also great.
Beavis and
And
the Buttheads that he's naming these children. It's
yeah, are
ridiculous, bro.
you more of a rectus or a
Stop,
scrotus?
bro.
I'm not.
I'm not answering that question. I'd go with the third kid that didn't even appear in the movie, but there is a lot to talk about Furiosa. There's a lot to talk about where Furiosa premiered, if I'm not mistaken, the big festival
Mhm.
that showcased it, that had all the stars out there, that just wrapped over in France. So joining us from beyond the green, because I'd say it's the nicest festival out there. It's Ewan.
What's up, guys? Yeah, I'm slowly coming back on getting more than 4 hours of sleep each night. So
So when the
that's
movies
a
are 4
nice
hours.
thing. Well, this year it was a bit shorter than last year. We had a lot of 3 hour plus movies, so I was grateful for a couple 90-minute films.
Let them know. What was the number you hit?
65.
Yeah,
I love it.
that's some hustle.
I love it.
That's dedication to cinema right there.
The jury
thing
came
is-
to him. That's pretty much how I went. They said,
yeah.
what should we seek out? That's good. Yeah, we're gonna be breaking down the Cannes Film Festival midway through this, but obviously first we're gonna talk about the movies of the week. But in general, I know obviously, man, you probably got the best stories that you just came back from France. But how was the weekend for you guys?
Ewan?
Sure. I mean, my flight to Gun was more interesting than the one back because I sat next to a couple, and one of the ones, I think she was Ukrainian and he was German, and they were talking about like stocks, and he was telling her about stocks, and they were talking about traveling, and I think it's the most like bizarre conversation I've ever had to listen in on because I was on an airplane for an hour. This weekend I was just like trying to get some sleep finally again. So not really a lot that happened this weekend. It's more the week before that was really eventful.
That's good.
Yeah. How'd you spend your Memorial Day weekend, Art? Because for me, like I had some other things going on. So when
Yeah.
I kind of get a little bit stressed, I dive into a video game, and I dove into a video game more wholeheartedly than I have in a long time. I don't know if you've heard of this game, RimWorld.
That sounds like what Erectus and Scrotus were playing. But you're telling me
yeah, basically.
RimWorld. Tell me more.
I'm just like
Oh,
crash
okay.
landing on planets and starting settlements and enacting rules for dystopian societies where sometimes we have to resort to cannibalism to get by. It's just all the stuff that you need in a nice relaxing video game.
Hey,
Rimworld's great, yeah.
Oh, you played it? Okay.
I haven't. No, I've never had the guts to actually play it because it's. I've watched some
Interesting.
stuff on it. It's more interesting to see more capable people do it. It's like I don't know. I don't make movies. I watch 65 of them, but I'm not gonna make a film. So I feel like I'm better talking about the thing and watching it.
What'd you play it on?
I got it on my laptop, but yeah, I don't know if
you
it's.
also got the Steam Deck. Yeah.
I do, but the thing is, like, it's one of those, because you're controlling all these like little details and stuff. I can't imagine playing it on like a console setup. I need a computer setup for it.
Interesting. All right, well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'll have to keep my eye on that. I actually did start playing the Mad Max one.
Oh yeah, I saw it was on
from-
sale on the PlayStation Store.
The moment I saw that thing was $4.99. I entered the wasteland, so I just had that thing booted up. I don't know if it's canon or not, but it answers a lot of questions that I had between Furiosa and what would be Fury Road. I also dove into the comic. I think the comic is really cool because there's like a prelude that kind of tells you how Nux got his name, how Furiosa started off. There's like a second Thunderdome. I pretty much had a pretty big Mad Max weekend. I had a lot of people over who were going to Sueños as well. And I was telling Zach that like the biggest artist that was playing, that everyone was waiting for, Peso Pluma, like 10 minutes before that man came out, it rained out. Everyone got kicked out. So I get to be in the comfort of my own home, at least knowing I've seen the man already in Austin. Thanks to Zach scoping out when it was going to be. I just got to play
need
Mad Max.
a word. Sorry. Finish your statement.
Mad Max is good. Play it. Someone should have promoted this game a lot more, bro. There is like no DLC to this thing. You are literally in the wasteland, and it is fantastic. You feel like you're on the Fury Road. Because when I left the theater for my screening, I was on 990, maybe a little too pumped up, like you just finished a Fast and Furious movie trying to like knock people out of the road. You actually get to do that here in this video game. It's worth it, bro. It's so good. Catch it.
Nice. Yeah, we need a word that's the opposite of FOMO for when you miss an event and it turns out that you were like perfectly rationalized in missing it. That things worked out perfectly because you didn't go to that event.
Intuition right here. Other than that, let's get into the movies of this week, starting off with the biggest one. I won't do it this week, but last week I had said the big orange movie, Garfield. I'm gonna keep it for real. We're starting with Furiosa, the newest film in the Mad Max saga. Some people upset that Max isn't in the movie. Some people ecstatic. Some people a little bit on the mid side, considering that Fury Road is considered to many as one of the best movies of the last decade, maybe of all time, maybe of the franchise. So, boys, I got to ask y'all, where do you stand with Furiosa, a Mad Max saga?
Ewan, start us off. You caught the movie at its premiere in France.
Where do I stand? At a 7-minute standing ovation at the Gun Film Festival. I don't know how many minutes ago. That's, by the way, a really silly thing that they tracked that with the clapping.
I saw Kyle Buchanan say a thing that kind of like even exploded my own thinking about it a little, because he was saying that the standing ovation is very directly tied to how many people are actually in attendance, which makes so much sense, right? Like if you have a huge cast and they're going to give everybody a standing ovation, of course it's going to be longer. It doesn't necessarily mean they like the movie more.
Damn, that's a great point.
I mean, they start clap. I don't know if they do that at the US festivals as well, but they start clapping at the logos because production companies are there.
Yeah,
right.
They do that. Yeah.
But I'm not the biggest fan of the clapping myself. But I do really like the Mad Max Saga and Furiosa.
It's worth the clapping. It's worth the applause.
Yeah, I mean, it's like sometimes even the occasional woo goes out, like it would be justified. It's just a real thrill, and that's rare that we get to see that on the big screen, which makes me even more disappointed from the box office numbers that have come in for the film so far. It's a bit of a letdown that people don't seek the thrill on the big screen.
That's been a big talk. I definitely want to get back to that part because I know that's been a big discussion of the movie.
Yeah.
In terms of it being a prequel, because I think that's a big part of it, that people have kind of gone about this movie in a way that feels kind of weird, because out of all the prequels that we get, all these side stories, all this extra mumbo jumbo that you get from all these big franchises, how is this not the epitome? This to me is exactly what I want a side story to be. This to me is exactly what I want a prequel to be. I think this adds so much to Fury Road. Even if it's not better than Fury Road, damn, does it make some sequences in Fury Road stand out even more. I think it's also him directing at all levels. I think the colors pop just as much as before. I think a big debate I've seen people have within the movie is the CGI. I was very critical of the trailer. I think they fixed a lot of stuff from the trailer. I won't deny that it's still heavy on CGI, but I think artistically, visually, it worked for me. So from that point, I thought it was a standout. I thought it was incredible, and I did not expect that just like Mad Max Fury Road had Furiosa be like the standout character, Furiosa now has Dr. Dementis as the standout character in this one.
Yeah, this franchise is all about the supporting characters kind of overshadowing the leads at some point. But I guess that's what you get when you make your lead character like a really stoic, quiet character who's got, 30 lines of dialogue in the whole movie?
Yeah, I think that's what he went on the record saying, 30, which is still double what Max had in Road Warrior.
Right.
I think he had like 16 in that one. So it's interesting. This is where a director who says, I don't want any talking happening in my movies, this is like it done right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just, I don't know if George Miller is the greatest action filmmaker of all time, but he certainly has made a case for it across this franchise. Just the staging of these sequences is unreal. I don't know if either of you had a favorite particular set piece. I just really love the first war rig set piece when we get Anya hanging off the bottom of the war rig. It's just
Stowaway?
like, yeah, as the stowaway. Like, it's just one of the it harkens back to my favorite moments in Fury Road, is the whole like actions having consequences nature of how many of these fight scenes play out. It's not just that like somebody's going to make a move to try and, you know, fight or shoot or whoever the person next to them, but because they make that move, there's always kind of this like consequence, whether it's opening up some other angle or it's like loosening your grip on the bottom of the speeding war tanker, and it just has this really kinetic feel. You get a really palpable sense of the stakes from moment to moment. It's not just sort of like a wash of fists and movements and cuts. It really is like thrilling and so incredible to look at. You can really read the action.
Yeah. To answer your question, I'm going with that the specific scene in Stowaway where the like octopus floaty thingy gets caught up from the whirlwind in the back.
The boomy knocker.
Woo! That was incredible, bro.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. What about you, Ewan?
I really like the opening. I think that one's just a great kickoff into the whole, like it
nice.
starts off with a chase, and
Yeah.
I feel like that goes back to, I guess, Fury Road and then, you know, not the biggest fan of the chaptering of it all, but I think that's a strong opening.
Yeah, I mean, something interesting about this movie, considering that they're really selling Anya Taylor-Joy at the center of it, is that she doesn't really show up for what is it, like 45 minutes to an hour into this thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter. Like that opening section that you're talking about, Ewan, is so suspenseful. And it's suspenseful in a way that I don't think a lot of Fury Road was suspenseful, because while Fury Road has this sort of unstoppable momentum, it feels like a ball rolling downhill. This one is much quieter. It's much more dire. It feels much more fraught. You know, it's centered around a whole child abduction and kind of like a ticking clock element of it as they progress closer and closer to camp. But just the way that they're able to kind of execute this whole sequence, not through kind of huge movements and explosions, but kind of like the quiet looming threat. I thought it was really, really well done.
Yeah, they knocked it out of the park. And I'm usually the person who doesn't like the chaptering. So the fact that they had the chapters going on here, the guy next to us was groaning after every single chapter. I loved it. I don't know. It worked for me. Like Zach was saying, the idea of not having her be in the movie for that first hour had me questioning, like, this is the Anya Taylor-Joy movie. Like, are we splitting this into part 1, part 2? Then finding out in the interviews that the little girl does have Anya's face AI'd onto her.
Yeah, they did some machine learning to sort of like match the eyes a little bit more.
Yeah, she said it goes from like 80 and they start going down to 30. And then that's why that middle part where they start introducing her, it's a little bit lankier than what Anya really is until they cut to the part where it is fully Anya. And then I would argue they must have done some voice stuff, because towards the end, there's still going to be a jump that happens between Anya and Charlize. And they do some voice stuff where she's facing the other way. I swore it was Charlize talking. The voice gets a lot deeper. You know, you do have some shots that then lead into Fury Road. I thought it was seamless. I'm sure people will then come up with arguments against the AI because people interpret AI to whatever it is. I think it's a tool that they used effectively in this movie, and it worked wonders.
Yeah, it's interesting, the elements that you're talking about that connect to Fury Road, because I feel like, you know, we're obviously in this era of sequels and prequels and tie-in films and spin-offs, and I feel like I'm so used to the connections between the films being so kind of like passive and not really integral. Like, it's really just a shoehorned in tie-in to be like an Easter egg, but there's like a real kind of like two halves of one whole thing happening here with Furiosa and Fury Road, in which they kind of feed into each other. And even though, you know, we saw by virtue of like it coming out first, we saw Fury Road first and then went into Furiosa. I feel like you could have an equally enriching experiencing for Furiosa first and going into Fury Road without it necessarily like tainting either. Even though I don't comparing the two films, I do feel some differences between them.
Go for it.
They just work. How they work together, I found to be really interesting. I don't know if that all worked for you, Ewan.
It really did, and I think it goes. It really speaks for George Miller as a filmmaker who's done all 5 of these films. That these last 2 seem to be a bit more connected, but I'd even make the argument that they stand on their own apart from that ending quite well of like a loner that gets introduced. Maybe less so with the last 2, but the first 3 are so like different. It doesn't need to be Mel Gibson in the films. It could be totally someone else because they feel different. And he still has so much.
Gonna come after you, bro. I learned the hard way.
Okay, I'm gonna keep my lips.
I realize Mel's got shooters out there. They love that man. But I agree with you. So we'll get shot together. They're like myths. Each tale can stand on their own.
Yeah, and we talked about this when we covered it on the Quiet on Set podcast. That Lachlan brought this up, that he feels like there's no other person, maybe other than James Cameron, who would be able to craft a world so rich of his own imagination on this scale, and it would still work. So I feel like it's George Miller that brings this, and already has had like that whole Furiosa thing crafted when he was shooting Fury Road. That's why this movie works so well, I think.
In playing the video game, they've got a Scrotus, which is the brother who's not in Fury Road. And it's like, why? What happened to him? How did he not end up there? I'm playing the game and answers in the first 10 minutes. The man has a bio on there. You read through it and it says when he fought Dr. Dementis during the 40-day war. I was like, this man wrote the movie a long time ago. It was in the bio of this game.
Well, I went and watched Fury Road immediately after leaving the theater and watching Furiosa, and it's all there. It is all there in the movie. I'm surprised how like fully realized it is, but that to me again is one of the things where actually it speaks to some of the differences between Furiosa and Fury Road, in that like Fury Road in its propulsive nature never really stops to do story at you. It never really stops to kind of fill out the characters, and it's in these sort of like quick flashes, quick moments of that you get with the characters, that they do such an incredible job of building the world that you don't even need those story moments to get a picture for the story. And I think that Furiosa is maybe like indulging in that a little bit more, taking its time a little bit more. It you know, just by virtue of Chris Hemsworth's really charismatic performance as Dr. Dementis, they give him a lot of lines that just make things that you could infer a little bit literal. And I think that's, you know, when you talk about the segmenting of this movie as well, I think that you can feel the pacing not quite as clicky as it is in Fury Road. Now, granted, they're completely different movies. I don't know if Furiosa should necessarily feel propulsive the way that Fury Road feels. Fury Road is just like one big car chase, and this movie is more of that origin story. But I think it is something that kind of separates Fury Road and makes Fury Road like just this incredibly special piece of action filmmaking. Not to diss Furiosa, because I loved Furiosa as well, but I think it is something that makes Fury Road even that much more special.
So it's also 2.5 hours. I think it's the longest.
Yes, it is the longest Mad Max movie.
There's a lot of fades to black. I know all the movies do it, but this one did have a bunch. And I was like, damn, okay. I absolutely adore the movie. I think it's incredible. I still think I'd have Mad Max Fury Road because I had rewatched it. Catching Thunderdome in a very crispy quality. Not Thunderdome. Sorry, apologies. Obviously, some people really like it. Road Warrior. That one holds up. Like, I understand why people come to bat for that movie. I think I think the whole franchise is incredible in the way that it's able to take like what would be Easter eggs that we've been saying, but it fits within the world, because in the world of the wasteland, everything gets repurposed. So you see like leg braces that characters were wearing from the old movies. That's why you see music boxes from the old movies coming up in Fury Road, lines that get passed down. It's such a realized world that it just works, especially when you're kind of segmenting the movies in a way where Road Warrior has someone telling you the story. This one has the history man telling you the story. So it becomes this idea of a mythology, and it works so well. What didn't work for you guys? What do you where else besides the runtime and some other aspects do you think it falls short that perhaps could be a reason why it isn't making as much or people aren't seeking it out?
I don't know why people aren't seeking it out, but I think my biggest thing is when we get that transition from the younger character to Anya Taylor-Joy. I think that whole thing is a bit clumsy in my eyes, and I'm also not the biggest fan of how much Hemsworth is kind of on the back burner when he's such a focus on building up his own mythology and like the cult around him, and then in the second half it's more like that deteriorating and falling apart. And I feel like it needed a bit more. Like for a 2.5 hour movie, I wanted more of, I guess, that relationship, but it makes sense for the story that they're telling, where we now aren't with I guess Furiosa, and she's not with him as much. But I just kind of wanted a bit more of that to lead to a finale, like a big talking moment there that like feels a bit more rewarding. Although I feel like the ending is also well done, but those would be my main two gripes with the film.
The 40-year war happening in 40 seconds or the 40-day war. That was another one, right? It's like maybe they're gonna do another video game, another movie to it. I would go see a prequel to Dementis. I think that would be dope. Zach?
The Battle of Bastards, just
hell yeah,
yeah.
But in sand, the sand movies. That's the key to 2024. Put sand in your blockbuster, and you have yourself a hit.
It is, yeah.
I don't have too many gripes with it. I think like my only complaints are that it's not one of the best movies of all time. You know, like I'm going back to Fury Road, and it's just so chock full.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so chock full of memorable characters, memorable moments, memorable lines. Like I don't know if there's any line quite as good as the whole bit about do not become addicted to water, for you may resent its absence, but stuff like witness me, stuff like what a glorious day, stuff like that's bait. Like it's just Fury Road is so full of it, and maybe with more time to revisit Furiosa and pull it apart for those little moments, we'll gain that appreciation for it as well. But I'm not immediately struck with it nearly as forcefully as I was immediately struck by Fury Road. And I knew from the second that I left the theater 10 years ago that Fury Road was one of my all-time favorites. And I love Furiosa. Just comparing it to the other action films we've got this year, in stuff like Monkey Man and stuff like Civil War and stuff like The Fall Guy recently, it's head and shoulders above him. It's the best one.
Above Dune 2?
And that's a good question. That is a very good question.
For me, no. But it's
for me, neither. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like right there. But it's not. Yeah. It's not.
Different grains of sand. You can't mix them. You can't compare.
Right? Yeah. A little bit different.
Yeah. I'll go. You know what? Here, let me do my quick ranking. I got Fury Road, then Dune 2, then Furiosa, then Dune 1. How about that?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I have the Dunes, and then I have the Mad Maxes. How about that?
Oh, okay.
Together. I'll have them together there. If it's all one combined thing, especially with this new trilogy, it seems like they're all going to be one thing. I will also add, as we get into the box office talk, I'd seen that a big part of discussing Mad Max Furiosa is that you need like about 2 paragraphs about your own personal experience. It seems that that's the thing that Twitter was really on about. So for me, a big part was I remember watching Fury Road in 2015. Waiting in traffic for about an hour, waiting in line for another hour, then getting stuck up in the front like this, having to witness Nux and everybody else do their stuff. And years later, bro, got to walk right in. I think all the boys here, all a part of
that's
press.
The journey.
That's the journey right there.
The reserved
so
seat.
Me, hey, it was a big up just to reflect on that since the last one, just all the movie accomplishments and stuff that we've done. Honestly, all the 3 of us, and when we were there, they even gave out some Furiosa shirts.
Ooh,
looks super dope. So
Ooh, the back.
Yeah,
That's
the side of the
it's a
back is
great
sick.
image. It's her like in gold, something like that coated, right? That's
in the
Yeah.
movie,
that's a great
bro.
poster.
I had a great experience with it. Look, it's not even a movie that you need to see in IMAX because it's not necessarily formatted for IMAX. I'd say Dolby because of the colors, because of the sound is the way to go. But I definitely do think that this is one to watch in theaters. Watching Fury Road at home, I have a great setup. Many times I go to the theater, I'm like, I can watch something better at home. Fury Road is that one where as good and as crispy as I could have it at home. How did they not release a double feature?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
crazy.
Why?
I
Yeah,
mean, I did it myself at home.
Yeah, like we had to do it ourselves. That black and white version also. I
Chrome
haven't sat with the
and
whole
white
thing yet. Or
or
the
shiny chrome. Yeah,
chrome
chrome and black.
edition. Lena said she almost preferred it to the original colors, and I know that they tweak it because it's not just like a monochrome Adobe Premiere effect that they throw on there. But it allows the movie to pop a lot more. So I'm very curious to see how the movie does, because going back into the box office, I do think that it's not doing that drastically different than what Fury Road did. I also
No,
feel Fury Road had legs. We just didn't have Twitter as up in arms as every single thing needs to be nowadays.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's also that, like, because of the sort of hangover effect of last year's work stoppages, the strikes, there's fewer movies sort of like around it. So I think a lot of pressure is on the movies like The Fall Guy and Furiosa to sort of prop up the
Yeah.
summer box office. Like, if you look this upcoming week, there's no big release. Like, what's going on? It's the summer. But
Yeah.
there's just sort of like this absence. It's still the first Mad Max movie to debut at number 1 at the box office. So it's not like it's unsuccessful. I think a lot of it, and
What
we've
beat
brought this
Fury?
point. That's a good question. Maybe look it up. Um, the thing that we've returned to a lot in these discussions about like whether or not a box office actually is poor is ultimately the money that gets spent on these films. And Furiosa was not a cheap movie. It cost about $160 million. And I believe that's even before marketing costs, being marketed pretty heavily. I'm like you though, in that I believe that movies like this have legs. Like, these are movies that people like seeing on the big screen.
Yeah.
Miller is obviously like a top tier action filmmaker. I think it's going to continue to, accrue some money over the next couple of weeks. And it won't, by the time that we're around to PVOD and stuff like that, it won't feel like the financial failure that a lot of people are trying to make it out to be.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think once people get to rewatch it again, they'll like it even more.
A couple quick things before we move on from this. Ewan, I don't know if you had something.
Just that it got beat out by Age of Ultron, which I mean does make sense.
Oh.
And the other thing is that there's a reason to concern. I don't know if you guys know Dan Burrell, but his box office breakdowns are very insightful. I can recommend them to anyone who hasn't seen them. But adjusted for inflation, it's like the third worst Memorial Day opening.
I did see that stat. Yeah.
And I mean, that stuff is just a bit concerning that overall, like we are currently in a phase where like we haven't had $100 million opener, and we probably won't until Deadpool and Wolverine. And just overall, it's just been a bit like lackluster when it comes to
What did
just
Dune
people
2
going
do?
on. I guess less than that. I'd say around probably guessing about 80.
80?
I don't know.
Damn.
Just guessing.
Look, I can't deny that the streaming stuff, right? Because that's been a big debate as well. We could do a whole segment on that. Ticket prices and people going, well, I live in the middle of nowhere and the ticket prices don't affect me. It's like, well, yeah, but the middle of nowhere isn't where the most people are at. It's the cities.
Yeah.
Like, come back in November. Let me know where the voters are, right? At that point, it's the people living in the cities that end up having to pay the most. And this idea that people also need to go support movies. We're movie guys. We talk for hours on movies. We watch 60 something at film festivals. Even we know what religious type of thing is it to like tell people you need to go support this? Nah, people buying food, people buying gas. Like, not everyone's going to be on a subscription service like other people are. And I feel that we many times yell at an audience, which already is the wrong thing to do. Why aren't you out there supporting a movie?
Why aren't you on A-list?
Yeah, like that is not. That's when you know you're living in a bubble, right? And we're probably more dedicated than most people on film Twitter. We can tell you that that's not the approach to tell regular people, especially when they know that studios are now releasing this stuff, 3 weeks later? How's Fall Guy not going to
and
fail
just
when it's
Fall
not?
Guy. Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a big debate that I have there. But
Yeah.
Keeping to the movie side, I know there was some other stuff that you wanted to bring up, or if you had another point, box office, streaming wise,
Yeah, well,
how
just
what
talking
incentives
about
you got for people?
talking about the box office, I did find this point kind of interesting in the Deadline article that apparently, according to Post Track, 52% of people went to Furiosa because they said it was part of a franchise they love. 34% cited director George Miller, 32% Anya Taylor-Joy, and 25% cited Chris Hemsworth. So despite being, thought of as one of our elite movie stars who's top-lined a huge Marvel franchise, Chris Hemsworth is not as big of a draw for this movie as Anya Taylor-Joy, who's out for all intents and purposes on the rise star. But neither of them was as big of a draw as George Miller, which I think sort of goes back to a point that I've tried to talk about on our podcast, is that like I think a lot of the big draw for people right now is seeing the event films from big filmmakers on the big screen. We go to see Oppenheimer not because we're really interested in the story of Oppenheimer, but because we want to see Christopher Nolan's interpretation of it, his vision for it. And when we're talking about the failure of some of these movies, I think that I don't know if this franchise in its current iteration has that much appeal outside of people like us who are really into George Miller and into like kinetic action filmmaking. But I wish it would transcend. I think a lot of people find it too weird.
It is definitely weird. Maybe that's why they don't see Chris Hemsworth in the role, because he's got the Bradley Cooper nose on him. So that could also be another reason.
Yeah.
But
the nose is crazy.
The nose is wild. There is a story element to it. I heard him talk about that. It's because he got beat up so much. So it's technically all mangled. And I'm like, oh, okay. I like that. I like how Josh brings up that even in speaking of box office, dude may have not crossed 100 the first weekend, but it's at 700 mil now. I think we do have a lot of sleeper hits now. We have to look at the box office differently in this landscape. That's why Elemental snuck up. That's why a lot of other movies end up making more money after the fact. And seeing what the first one did, at the end of it all, I think there was that big debate, the lawsuit that Miller had on WB for revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it made money if you sue him for some revenue.
Right.
Look, I as Ewan mentioned earlier, they already had this story, and they have that Wasteland story.
Mm-hmm.
They have another movie, be it Hardy or whoever else they might get. If they went younger with Furiosa, they go younger for Mad Max. But the idea is that in order to make Fury Road, they came up with her backstory and what he was doing the year prior. They got those storyboards ready to go. And that for Mad Max, storyboards is a script. So I'm ready for that.
Yeah.
I know we had some stuff in the chat, and a lot of it deals with the cast. A big one that I saw there, if you want to bring up who had given it a mention, because I think we're to blame, Zach. They ended up going with this boy right here who, look, I don't mind. He was horribly good in The Souvenir. Tom Burke coming in the stowaway sequence to play like kind of like a version of Mad Max, but the person who ends up becoming Furiosa's mentor. It was supposed to be Yahya Abdul-Mateen.
Yahya Abdul-Mateen, yeah.
That's my boy. I hope he didn't leave for Aquaman, but there is a chance that he left because we saw him on Broadway. So if it was for the Broadway performance, I'll take the
bring back that water quote. You're gonna like water too much.
Yeah, that lines up so perfectly. The news at the time said he left Furiosa to work on a project that he was very passionate about, and I can't imagine that was Aquaman. But getting the chance to be on Broadway, oh man, I really would have loved Yahya Abdul-Mateen in the role. I just think he could have made that part maybe a bit more elevated to me. But I thought Tom Burke was solid. Like I did enjoy him in the part. I mean, I know some people were really, really taken with him, but to me, the standouts are still Hemsworth and Taylor-Joy.
Easy, 100%.
And Charlie Freeney, is that her name? The Charlie Fraser, that's her name. The woman who plays Furiosa's mom at the beginning of the movie. Do you recognize where else you've seen her recently?
Yeah, anyone but you, bro. The moment she came out on screen, I was like, that's right, she's Australian.
Yeah.
They had said that they wanted Furiosa to be Gal Gadot at one point. She had tried out. And I got a lot of Gal Gadot vibes off of her, but more chill and more likable. Yeah. She killed it at that beginning. This is also like, she has an act. This is her second movie.
Yeah, it's crazy. What a come up.
So shout out her. I am one who also thinks that they should have shown more of the green. I think that was a big thing they were kind of teasing from Fury Road. Seeing her be one of the leaders, I think they could have easily held their own with it. You also had a lot of family ties. I don't know if you've seen that Elsa Pataki played 2 roles. She's obviously the mother
Yes.
with her at the beginning. Then she's a dude who's all scarred up. That was pretty cool.
Hemsworth's wife, if anybody doesn't know.
Yeah.
Who else attacked?
They are they're the better version of what's her duo who always appear. Or technically he appears in hers.
Melissa McCarthy and James Falcone. Is that his name?
Yeah,
I
know he appeared in her Netflix movie.
Ben Falcone.
Yeah, it was he played like a Best Buy employee, a little corny, but they made up for it here because she had 2 really dope roles and it allowed them to all be together there. The guy who plays Erectus said that he had his boy as a war boy behind him in a lot of the scenes. I thought that was really adorable. And then you have like so many people who just play multiple roles as well that I thought was pretty cool. But I'm really curious to see what the younger Furiosa is going to do because she was in 3,000 Years of Longing, right? That was the name of the movie.
Yeah.
She played young Kate Blanchett, so she's on that playing the young version of A-list actors, and usually that ends up being a good run for people. But I don't know if there was anybody else who stood out for y'all or any other questions. But
it was her. She was really good, and there's another film I haven't seen yet that just came out on VOD, Sting, that she's also in.
That's when I realized that she was going to be in this because all the press is just her going, "I'm in Furiosa." That's also how I knew because having seen her in that, you're like, wait, they did something with your face. So that's also like a really interesting thing to see yourself up on the big screen, but it's another actor's face on you. I thought she killed it. I almost even prefer the first hour of that young Furiosa over the latter hour of Furiosa, but some people may disagree there. But yeah, overall, I think it's worth catching in theaters. I think it's worth the extra money to see it in Dolby. And I'm very excited to see how they're going to expand it. Go rent the game. It's like $5. Go buy the game. It adds a lot to it. Find the comic. It adds a lot to it. I just think the whole world in general that he's created that started back in 79, worth it. One of the best storytellers that we have out there for sure.
We got one question from Josh in the live stream I did want to bring up before we move on, asking if we thought Furiosa looked visually strange at all. He loved the movie, but thought it gave off Spy Kids vibes sometimes. You were saying earlier that you thought that they fixed the CGI from the trailers a lot. And I agree with you, even though I don't think it looks quite as tactile as Fury Road. Shouldn't ignore that.
You're back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think it was just a web thing.
So yeah, there's a lot of CGI in Fury Road as well, so we shouldn't like ignore that while we're praising the physical nature of Fury Road. I thought that the CGI looked worse.
That's just George Miller. George Miller does not want you talking smack. You keep cutting out.
Oh man, really? I'm cutting. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
I think it's an internet thing. I don't think it's your cable.
Okay, so yeah, I was trying to say that I think the worst CGI shots are the ones involving children, which makes a lot of sense because you don't want to throw actual children in the middle of those chaotic action sequences.
Have them fighting like Charlize and Hardy of the first movie. Again, I don't know if you guys have rankings. I think Ewan did have a list, if I'm not mistaken, for your favorites.
For Mad Max? Yeah. For me, this one's third, straight down the middle, but Fury Road at the top, Road Warrior, Furiosa, first Mad Max, and then Thunderdome.
Nice.
I think I'm gonna be very similar to you. I'm waiting on Thunderdome. That's the last one, and I'm rewatching the Chrome version. But I think Fury Road's at the top. That should be a whole 5 stars for me. So I'm gonna be fixing that rating. The second one really holds up, dude. I don't know if you've seen it, Zach. It is weird in the best ways possible.
And the finale is amazing.
Yeah, it really does hold up. I see why some people really, really stand by it and why so many people just know it as the Road Warrior because that's just how they released it over here. So I think it's what got a lot of people into Mad Max and they still hold that as the I don't know, the prime example of what the movies can be. But what Fury Road did was incredible. I think Furiosa is one of the best prequels, side stories we've ever gotten. Like just comparing it there, give me more of that. Star Wars, take notes. Everybody, Marvel, everybody take notes. But I think it's one of the best franchises to get into. Even Thunderdome, from the clips that I've seen so far, I don't think it's the worst. But you got a video game, you got the comics, get into it. Garfield is out in theaters, and it did not premiere at Cannes. It premiered at your local Cinemark and AMC, where they are giving out buckets and are giving out like Garfield plushie toys. I saw somebody show up to the Furiosa screening. The man, the one who I told you was complaining about the title sequences. He pulled out his plushie toy, just started playing with it, bro. We saw it on a Monday. You made me hate Mondays for sure. I have, bro, I don't know. You gentlemen got to see the Garfield movie. I went back and saw Garfield the movie because, of course, they are all practically titled the same. And damn,
yeah, classic mistake.
Horrendous oldies that we had there. But for me, I actually did grow up watching the Garfield and Friends. Garfield and Friends. I don't know if you guys ever saw the animated series. Fantastic.
Yep.
Perfect weekend morning cartoon. What do we got going on here, boys? Because this is the one movie I missed this weekend, and I don't know if it was going to be up there, but Zach looks like you loved it.
Yeah, I'm a gigantic fan of the Garfield. No, I mean, look, I thought it was okay, right? Like, I think that Garfield's history of big screen adaptations is a pretty nefarious one, if that's the right word. Not exactly glittered in success. So I think there's a lot of reason to have some nerves entering this movie, but I think what they essentially did is they played it real safe. They played it like really traditional. It's got a very kind of predictable story of how Garfield was separated from his parents, and it's got this warm-heartedness to it. Big celebrity voice name actors. For some reason, Samuel L. Jackson is Chris Pratt's dad in this universe. Don't know how that really
don't get that.
lines up, but I mean, I think it was like, for a kids movie, it's okay. Like, there's a couple jokes here and there that work for me. You know, there's a part where a cat picks up a phone to call the police and starts, saying the call, and then you see the other end and it's just meow 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 meow. Like, it's little silly bits here and there. So it's nothing innovative or like groundbreaking. I feel like if I was a parent and I had to take my kid to see movies occasionally to get them to leave me alone for a little bit, I could do worse than this one. Now, do I think this is like a soon to be classic? Do I think this has got a dark horse shot at the 5th Oscar nomination in Best Animated? No, it's not good enough. It's just kind of passable. I'm a little bit over this whole thing that we do with these characters, where, like, whether it's movies like this or movies like the recent Scooby-Doo adaptation that Warner put out, where it's not just enough to kind of live in the world that the original cartoon created. We have to go on some big action adventure. We have to find out the secret story of your lost parents. We have to stop the world from whatever. And I kind of want to just see a movie about a cat who likes lasagna.
He's a lazy cat.
Yeah.
Why is it always like Despicable Me 5?
Exactly. Like, can he just like be in a weird fight with his nosy neighbor or something like that? Why does he have to like cross the continent? Is my main reaction to
You shouldn't believe the couch.
The state of children's entertainment. But Ewan, I think you'd like this one a bit less than I did.
There's more running in this from Garfield than in like some Tom and Jerry bits. It's like crazy that a lazy cat is.
His whole thing is he's supposed to be lazy. Like,
yeah. And so my short thoughts on it is like, somehow this makes the Minions look good. It's
damn.
I feel like it has the same thing. It's not the same studio, of course, but I guess Sony can have their dots as well. I feel like this is on the level of like the Emoji Movie to me, on the same level of quality. And they have those needless like pop song needle drops as well in here that like Despicable Me and especially all of the Illumination films are really kind of known for by now. I think the basis of Garfield is I never was there a cartoon. I never watched a cartoon. I just know from the little comic bits that they're like there's nothing there. It's really unfunny. It's the same bits over and over again. So I feel like when there's a standout thing, like a little silly thing that catches you off guard and it makes you giggle a bit or chuckle, then that's the most it has to offer. And then all of the slapstick stuff just really reminds me of really silly engagement made for like the lowest common denominator for children for the slapstick stuff, and it's not even like that good. So I didn't like it at all, but I went into expecting not to like it, so it's not like
I went into it
This
also
is Sony,
expecting
huh?
not to like it. So I guess that's why I was like a little pleasantly surprised that I didn't want to rip my hair out. And I think the comparison with the Minions and Illumination in general is the right one. Like I was even surprised this wasn't Illumination when I saw just the look of it, even the kind of plasticky look of these creatures.
I thought it was. It's Sony. What?
Yeah. But it's
this is what
it's
Columbia
very
does
safe.
for the 100th anniversary.
Oh, okay.
It's very safe the way that a lot of those Illumination movies are, and some of those Illumination films are better than others, but I don't think any of them really transcend the way that we would hope. We I don't know. Pratt's fine in it. He's not exactly like the most Garfieldian, but like it, it gets the job done.
He ate a lot of lasagna to prep for the
He said
role.
he doesn't
Okay?
like lasagna, which should be a no from the casting standpoint. It's like
What? Liar, thieving, adulterer at heart. Between Super Mario Bros, Lego Movie, and Onward, I think it's a very self-explanatory ranking. But I don't even know what the question is to ask because he's just gonna be doing the same voice every single time. But I still think that Emmett has been
it
the
fits
best
the best
embodiment
in
of his
Lego,
voice acting. Yeah, because it really just is him as a average everyday goer. But I also feel like he's lost that now too, because he's also really gone into being, he's not Star-Lord the chump anymore. He's Star-Lord after Infinity War and Avengers. He's got the military movie. He's Jurassic World now. I don't think he can even be that type of character again. So maybe he needs to be more lazy, and for the sequel, we'll be able to get a good voice from Chris Pratt. Zach,
maybe
better than If?
Yeah, honestly, better than If. I just as heartwarming and not as maudlin.
Speaking of movies that are not better than If or Garfield, Hitman. Really quick thoughts over here because I believe we all saw this like last year, or I saw this at the beginning of the year at Sundance. Y'all saw it at other festivals, if I'm not mistaken.
Venice,
Me.
Hitman is finally out in theaters. It got picked up by Netflix, which all of us were a little iffy on because we're like, no, this needs to be seen in theaters. They're giving it like 2-3 weeks, which I think is pretty cool. I don't know if it's going to be making any money. I feel like Netflix is the most comfortable in releasing something and going like, we're just doing a favor for you guys. This is going to sit at home. I believe June 6th, if I'm not mistaken. So some good words for why people should see this out in theaters if they have the chance to.
It's the best movie of the year so far. It's like,
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's my favorite. It's nothing at Gunn was able to. I'm gonna stick with it. I think it's the best movie of the year. It's better than Anora.
Damn.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I loved it. Just a great time.
I think it's a super solid thriller. That's hilarious.
Yeah. It is such a good time. I think, it's directed by Richard Linklater, who some people might have the association of him doing his like Before Sunrises or his Boyhoods, the more like contemplative indie dramas, which are all amazing films that I love, but aren't like raucous fun times at the movie theater. This is him in more of like a School of Rock commercial.
Hell yeah.
Film. And I think it's just like it's just a real like electric movie with great movie star performances. It's kind of, for me, the movie that is the best at getting the Glenn Powell out of Glenn Powell. I think it's so fun. And there's in particular like one scene that generated a spontaneous applause from the audience I saw it with. And just to be there's something to the quality of being in the room and you kind of feel everyone around you lean forward and everybody on the edge of their seats that you're never going to be able to replicate if you're sitting at home watching it on your couch, checking your phone every 30 seconds or something like that. And I don't know, it's a movie that rewards that kind of attention, whereas not everyone will. So if you have the opportunity to see it on the big screen, that's great. I know not everybody will get the chance to, because Netflix and AMC still haven't kissed and made up, but you know.
Right? That's another one too. When people are saying get the AMC passes, well, you can't actually use it for everything. But I think that this is probably the easiest recommendation to give any friend out of all the movies that we talked about and that we're going to talk about. Like, this is the most comfortable one where you can tell anyone in your family, any friend, like, yo, you want to go see, you want to go have a good time at the movies? Go watch Hitman. We all saw it in 3 different countries. I see Josh or Devesh talking about, recommending it to a friend as well. Every single place, no matter where you're at, has reacted to similar beats and that scene that Zach's talking about. I already know which one it is. That's how good it is.
Devesh said we had that applause too, which goes to show you, like, it just
translates
sort of
everywhere.
Yeah, transcends country or region or whatever.
Fantastic.
And just talking about that easy to recommend quality that you mentioned, like I've said before, my parents are really not into things that are like out of this world. Like as great as Dune is, I could never recommend that to them.
Yeah,
absolutely can recommend a movie like this to them. It's a really good time.
So that's good. That's coming to Netflix. One to recommend if you don't like the people in your life is the new Netflix sci-fi movie, as Zach was just mentioning. Atlas. It is the new Netflix sci-fi movie about AI that looks to support AI because it feels like it was written by AI. It stars Jennifer Lopez as an analyst. Her husband was an accountant. Now she's an analyst here. Who's supposed to be the person who's going to protect the world, even though she may be the person who kind of started it. It has a pretty stacked cast. I don't know how she got Mark Strong. I don't know how she convinced Sterling K. Brown. But I do know how she convinced Simu Liu. He is technically the bad AI in this movie who goes rogue and becomes a literal AI terrorist. And it becomes this like trek across the stars in order to go find him. So what you end up really having is a movie where she's in this spacesuit, just chilling. And I hear the director talk about it and he goes, I just set up 5 cameras. I just let her look wherever she wanted to. And then we just put the little CGI AI thing that she talks to throughout the movie. Easiest filming for her. Was it an easy watch for y'all?
Absolutely not. I was resisting the urge to turn it off at every new scene. Yet I powered through. You mentioned that this film is sort of about AI and stuff. I don't know what it is with this like bent of Netflix films that are actually about loving and embracing AI, but maybe they're trying to prepare us. But it's just, this movie never ends up feeling like an actual movie. I don't know what it quite is about the quality of it, but it always feels like when you're watching a movie about an actor and they cut to a clip of their new movie and you see some fake thing that's obviously like super CGI'd, and just her whole, like, you mentioned it in your intro to this, that although this is like a planet hopping or whatever movie, the majority of it is just different angles of J-Lo's face in this kind of like mech suit, right? Like she's almost in the like something cross between the Edge of Tomorrow and Pacific Rim mech suits.
Edge of Tomorrow. There's a scene that ripped that movie off completely with the fall. No, horrendous.
And there's a lot of those moments that like rip something off, like the opening where they all are like together and assemble the group. Really reminded me of Aliens, and like the opening felt a lot like a Blade Runner at one point. It's really felt like it was fed into like as reductive and as lame it is to like describe a bad movie nowadays into, oh, it must have been written by AI. This one really feels like
it's written by AI.
Yeah, it's like,
it's just like, so a lot of the movie ends up not just being these different angles of her face in the mech suit, but her talking with a voiceover of the most bland AI imaginable, just like learning to trust each other and stuff. It's
Did you know she has trust issues?
I watched This Is Me ... now, so I'm
Yeah.
well aware of J-Lo's trust issues. I don't know, but this is like it's a complete misfire for me.
Yeah, it is an amalgamation of several movies. Ewan brought up Aliens. They rip a Ripley line right at the end in the suit and everything. I don't think it's the worst that Netflix has produced, but it's the worst because it's so middle of the ground. You got people actually investing money in it with all these graphics and whatever else. It doesn't look like the worst thing shot, but there is not a creative inkling of anything in this movie. What I'll end it with Simu Liu talking about how he had mentioned that he had to do the voice as a very soft-spoken thing because technically he was a house spot, something they have in this movie, house spots, and that because it was supposed to be very soft and spoken, once he becomes evil, he's saying evil lines, but it's still soft and spoken. And I'm like, buddy, you weren't programmed to kill. I think you could program the settings
Right?
for your voice to be different too. What were y'all doing with this movie? Atlas out on Netflix. Save your free subscription if you don't have it for June 7th when Hitman actually comes out.
There you
That's
go.
the better version.
Yeah.
Or if you ended up, on your parents' accounts, or maybe you are already paying for the $27 that Netflix is up to nowadays. At least there was a decent little show out called Tires. It's just so short. Did you guys catch this one?
Yeah. I actually caught all 6 episodes of this.
Did you like it?
I had a pretty good time with it. Yeah. It's interesting. This is Shane Gillis's I believe self-funded and self-created show.
Yes. That's how it got renewed.
Exactly. Yeah. So Netflix, being in the Shane Gillis business, feels like a good fit for it. I mean, obviously they have a huge platform for comedy, and he's developed into like one of the bigger stand-up draws in the country. And he has this kind of reputation that I think he sort of plays with in this show a bit too, because it is a bit crass. It is a bit like, for lack of a better term and using an overused term, but like not always PC. Like they have some jokes that sort of push buttons and push lines and stuff like that, but never in a way that I found to be too abrasive, never in a way that made me feel like I was being fed hate. It's more just like hanging out with kind of like dude bros in a sense that like I've gotten that vibe from shows just sort of like a real every guy quality to the way that the characters speak, to the types of interactions. I've already seen people posting like my least favorite jokes and talking about how great they are, but I think it does a pretty good job at kind of giving you this sort of very.
You're still breaking in. Isaac's glitching out a little bit. Let's see if he comes in a little bit. I know he had mentioned the show. I'm going to ask him what the show was.
Way that like it felt like we were missing a sitcom about teachers for.
I think he's talking about Abbott. He's saying Abbott's a really good show.
Teachers. Yeah, I finished the season. I don't want to cut him off now because he's clearly still talking.
Zach, try to refresh. I think it's just an internet thing. The Atlas, Josh said the Atlas AI came for you, bro. Nick Rudo said he's starting a GoFundMe right now for your internet. Hold on, say something.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Am I back?
There you go.
Yeah,
you
you're back. Yeah.
All right.
You were comparing this to another show.
Yeah, so the way that setting the show in an Autobot.
No,
Abbott is great though. Abbott is great. I just finished a season as well. Just
it just wrapped, right?
Yeah. Just finished it earlier today. Great season. Just 14 episodes, I guess. Shorter,
Yeah, they had to
but
cut it down after they were being able to do the 20s. But I'm curious your thoughts if you catch this one, because I do want to wait for Zach to come back, because I agree with that point he was making about Shane Gillis specifically kind of being the harbinger of like stuff that's not considered a little too raunchy, but he does it in a way where you at least take it as comedy. I think there's a lot of other actors in this that I know Zach isn't too keen to. But because it's Shane Gillis at the forefront, I think he's able to like take a lot of those jokes and not see it as like something that's more undercutting. I think he's coming back in. We got him back.
Hey, I'm back.
We talked to JLo, the analyst, and we were able to fix it up.
Yeah, Smith had that Neuralink connection for the three of us.
Perfect.
We're all linked in now.
All right. If I can circle back to the point that I was attempting to make before my internet and the AI started coming after me, damn you, Simu Liu. I was saying that the way that like it felt like we were missing a sitcom about teachers and schools for years before Abbott Elementary came around.
Yep.
The idea of setting a sitcom in an auto body shop is so smart. Like this place that I feel like most of us have had some interaction with, and it's got this whole world to it that you can dive into. I think it's a show that has a lot of potential. Like I lament a lot on this podcast the absence of workplace hangout sitcoms. And you know, when you get like a good group of performers together and a good idea, I feel like it's the kind of thing that I could spend, you know, seasons hanging out with. So, you know, only 6 episodes, but I felt like they went by in a breeze. I had a good time watching the show.
I think bringing up Abbott's a good point, because just like that's kind of in the shadows, it came out of The Office, right? And it takes a lot from The Office. I think this has a similar thing where you have a character who's probably an even bigger loser than what Michael Scott was. He's like an idiot who's trying to pitch as much things as possible to fix this auto shop. His dad runs the place, but everything that he does, it just gets worse and worse. He sucks at work. He's terrible in his regular life. Everything just is always falling apart for him. But there's something in that where, as cringy as it gets, it all gets tied up at the end of each episode. And a lot of that comes from the cast. You were mentioning how Shane Gillis in particular is able to bring in a lot of jokes that, you know, are pushing the envelope. I wouldn't even say that they're that raunchy, but he gets away with them because of the way he delivers them, right? I know there's some other comedians in this that you're not the most keen on. Those comedians tend to say a lot of jokes that, like you were saying, people then go online and they focus on the worst part of it. I'm like, I don't know what you found funny in that joke, but I think it was for the wrong reasons.
Right. Exactly. There's a lot of stuff like that makes me like a little bit nervous, but I think ultimately like the jokes are good. And that's what makes me want to keep with it. I do think it's a little bit like ridiculous that he brought back his like shitty racist Asian guy accent, but at the same time he's doing it under the auspicions that his character is an asshole. So I guess it's not, you know, like trying to be portrayed as a good thing. I don't know if you were referring to Stavros Halkias. I kind of like Stavros.
Hell no, I know you like Stavros. Yeah, no, he's
the only guy I know from the cast here.
No, bro, dude, he's ridiculous. Every scene he's eating, there is a running bit with him where he has a new snack, but the vending machine is broken. That scene was hysterical.
Yeah.
Did it make you a fan of Andrew Schultz?
Oh, Andrew. Yeah. I mean, no, but like it didn't make me hate him either. He's fine.
But this is what I'm saying. Shane is able to do what Andrew can't. What I'm trying to think of the other guy too, because they all do like the same podcast. You end up seeing them all throughout. There's another Tim Dillon, right? Yeah. Someone who really plays into the bit so much. Shane is like right in the middle of that, where you don't see him doing the jokes to make, you know, the subject the butt of it. It's more the situational comedy of it. There's a beginning bit that he has where he's talking about Chrysler 300s and menthols. I'm like, bro. Obviously, some people would gravitate towards the end of that joke with the extra guy that they have in there.
Right.
But I thought he was able to deliver the comedy pretty well. I agree with what Zach said. It's having the situational bits be in a very just like I don't want to call it the lowest, but like just your average job that you can have of being a mechanic that's not just worried about its own place, but like the entire chain might go down at any moment. It's got this Bob's Burger feel of it, where every single episode is them just trying to come up with an idea or they're all going to lose their jobs.
There's a scrappy quality to it.
And it's beautiful. And I love how it bleeds into the series itself because it got renewed before it even premiered for a second season. So whatever idea that marketing idea they're trying to get in tires of flipping tires for cheap to be able to upsell, I think he did that in real life. He got all his comedian friends. Every actor that comes in here has done stand up in some form or another. And I think it delivers. It's very short. We finished it before even realizing it. I thought we had 2 more episodes. So
yeah, it's basically a feature length.
Yeah, good point.
And maybe it could have been in a different world, but
maybe
I'd be down to spend another season hanging out in this world. So yeah,
sounds dope.
Tires
over on Netflix. Other than that, that pretty much wraps up all of our picks for the week. But there was one documentary I wanted to bring up just to have a pretty quick discussion before we get into our major con breakdown, and that is the Beach Boys doc that came out on Disney Plus. We've been getting a lot of documentaries, especially music documentaries over on Disney, because they're able to clear a lot of the stuff, music, rights, story. We had the Beatles one that they just did with, what's his name?
Peter Jackson.
Thank you. And what they even fixed the old documentary that they had, cleaned it up, re-released it on Disney Plus. With the Beach Boys, I kind of want to have a bigger talk, not just in the documentary, but Apple's 100 albums of ever. I think, Zach, you got to look into it a little bit. I was keeping an eye on it. I was trying to guess those little gold-plated things that they were coming out with. Everyone was laughing that when it came up to the top 10, there was the Good Kid, Mad City van. After Drake destroyed it, Apple covered it in gold and it made it to the top 10. But out of all the albums out here, any placement issues, any things that were missing, is the whole thing trash?
Well, look, I think anytime you endeavor to put together a list like this, which is not even letting you whittle it down by genre or by time period or by style or anything like that, like just a comprehensive top 100 albums, it's basically an impossible task, right? Like you just went past Usher next to Lord, not far from Solange. Like it's just sort of, you're all over the place. I mean, that's not the best examples of it because you've also got, Beach Boys on here, as you mentioned. You got Radiohead, you got George Michael.
This so low for AC/DC.
But
Nina Simone this low? This low?
Well, hold on, because you say this low, but it's also the 88th of all time, right? Like just because it's low on the list doesn't mean it's an insult.
Well, it's because of the 87 before it. I wouldn't even say 87. I'll say a good 60 before it.
Sure. I think one of my issues with the list, and I think also the way that a lot of people are talking about the list, is that people have these memories of these songs and not necessarily memories of albums. Like there are some albums on here with incredible tracks and not exactly things that you want to listen to start to finish. Like I am a huge defender of Jay-Z. He's in my top 5 rappers of all time for sure. The Blueprint is not no skips. I'm sorry. Like it's a great, it's not even, I don't know if it's even his best, to be honest.
What do you put in Reasonable Doubt?
Yeah, I think I'd go Reasonable Doubt above it. I might even go Volume 2 above it. But yeah, I mean, there's a couple albums on there where it's like, I mean, it's got 3 incredible songs, but it's not an incredible album, if that makes any sense. There's also like a little bit of, I think, too much deference to what's popular right now. Granted, I think they could have been worse. Like they didn't put Taylor Swift in number 1 or anything like that.
But the version that they went with is odd. That they went with the newer one with the worse mix.
Well, that's just to not upset Taylor.
and that's a great point right there. To not upset
Taylor's version of 1989.
Yeah. There was a joke about, as I scroll up to the number 1 spot, that they give it to the living artist so that they could surprise him with a dinner. That was a big thing that was going around. And I do feel like, who voted for this stuff? You know me, I like the transparency and how did we come to this? And look, I agree with you. It's an honor to be nominated. I think that's one of my favorite quotes when it comes to like the AMC Oscars, always discussing like just to be in the top 100 is the point. We can then discuss like, should it be this Janet Jackson album? Should it be something else? I know some people wanted different versions for like Radiohead. I was surprised In Rainbows wasn't on there. I know people would disagree with me.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to go 3, bro. They didn't.
I was hoping. I mean, look, I think they got my 2 favorite albums, OK
they got
Computer
2
and
of
Kid A on there, but
For sure,
I
there's
would not
Kid
have
A.
been upset with Within Rainbows as well.
I agree with you. Is there also kind of a bias for the new ones? I think Sizzle was a big one where it's like, really? Already on
Mhm.
here in the top
Billy number
100?
30, I think, is pretty high.
Yeah.
The Billy stuff I can't get though. I feel like I don't know.
We,
A bit
we
more.
were big Bailey fans here. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. But I see how she's already and SZA as well. How she's already in here.
Right.
The
I
right
think
or
for
wrong
me
Kanye.
specifically, I mean that's they chose the right Kanye album and it's in the right spot. I would say. I think you
which
could
one did
go,
they go with?
they went
My
with
Beautiful
My
Dark
Beautiful
Twisted
Dark Twisted
Fantasy.
Fantasy. I could see like I would have been okay with College Dropout
That was
Yeah.
mine.
making
That was mine.
like
Mine as
the
well.
bottom 50 or something like that, but
Could
My
have had
Beautiful
two,
Dark
yeah.
Twisted Fantasy is incredible. Just going back to the Billy
Blonde is a
thing.
bit high. Oh, sorry, yeah.
Who?
Blonde. Yeah, I
Number
love
5
Frank
is a
Ocean.
bit
Yeah.
Blonde's really high.
Yeah.
And here's Beach Boys, which
Yeah, number
I also
20,
think
which
pretty
I
low.
think is way too low.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
I'm somebody who prefers the Beatles to the Beach Boys, but I don't think the Beatles have a single album as good as Pet Sounds.
1989 Taylor's version, bro. Some crazy.
Better
stuff.
I
than
think
Pet
if
Sounds,
you just
apparently.
go by Marvin Gaye, what's going on? I feel like that's one of,
Right?
if not my favorite album from front to back, only bangers. That album is incredible.
Sitting at 17, which again, I
Yeah.
get it. It's in the top quarter of it. But I think Rolling Stone also came out with an adjacent list going through their 100. They had him in the top 5. I think they may have even had him at number 1.
That was the thing that I thought was really interesting. I also looked at that side by side with the Rolling Stone
Right?
list. That there is more overlap than
Blueprint
you'd
is
think.
good.
Like there are some albums that we've decided are.
Yeah, we're just arguing where the placements are,
Yeah.
and I get that point. It's more so like what is missing or not. Damn, OK Computer was pretty high. Might as well just put
For
it in
me,
the
The
top 10.
Stranger is missing, but I don't know if the consensus is that that's a great album. But I'm a huge Billy Joel fan, so
Mm.
to me,
I mean,
that's like one
probably
that's,
merits it considering how iconic it is for
They should
sure.
have broke the top 10. I'm just saying, bro.
Rumors should have been.
Rumors should have broken
there.
the top 10. That's not even discussion. What are you knocking out? From the top 10, you got Beyonce Lemonade.
I mean,
I'm saying Beyonce Lemonade top 25.
I don't know if I put Beyonce then. I feel like this is awful to say on the back
Internet?
of us discussing the biopic, but I don't think Back to Black goes in the top 10 for me. I like it a lot.
Me neither. I think it's the one where it's like there's a couple really standout songs, but I listened to the whole album when the movie came out, and I was like, "Ooh, there's a couple of skips in here, not
Yeah, I'm
necessarily."
not going to
ones
disagree. Yeah. I was happy to see it there.
I'm happy it's on the list. 8 is really high.
8 was really high. That was a
I
surprise.
put it in the 50s somewhere, to be honest.
Yeah.
So somewhere there.
Nirvana
Still in
for
the top
sure.
100.
Yeah, Nirvana for sure. Top 15.
Mhm.
I don't care where you guys put it, but it should be up there. For sure, Amy top 25.
Mhm.
Is this... Look, I think this is
Good
his
Kid,
best
Mad
album.
City, number 7.
Where was To Pimp a Butterfly?
Yeah, I'm a
Where
little
was
surprised.
Damn, the Pulitzer winning one?
Yeah, I'm a
I'm
little surprised
confused.
we didn't get a second Kendrick album somewhere in the top 100, but I do think they picked the right one.
They did pick
Or-
the right one to be in the
yeah.
top 10 for sure. I was just surprised considering I think they also said All Right was like song of the decade or something like that. And I'm like, okay, where is that album? Did beat Drake out though by like 60 songs. So one of them had a deal with Apple, and Apple did not seal that deal for them. Stevie Wonder in
Songs in the Key of
everyone's
Life.
top 10 easily.
Yeah.
I saw every single list and people who were compiling it and making their predictions.
That's
from
the
looking-
only one that's in the top 10 that I thought could have been higher.
for sure.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Blonde, number 5.
Again, he
That's a
made the
lot.
deal with Apple. That whole bit about how he screwed over UMG and was able to get the double 20, and he sold it himself, made the deal directly with Apple Music. I love the album.
Yeah, me too.
Was 5. That's crazy.
I don't remember I don't remember what year it came out. I don't even know if it was my favorite album of that year. It's a
16
really
or 17, I think.
yeah,
I wanna
it's a
say.
really, really good album, and I'm not against it being on the top 100 list. It just feels like, come on, man, it's next to Stevie Wonder. That's crazy.
You're setting it up to fail because I know even with what was number 1, a lot of people were like, "No, there's a lot of remixes. There's interpolations that she does in that album." But I'm like, "Yeah, but that gets a pass." Well, if you have a problem with that, in Blonde, my man's talking through like a transmitter and doing a bunch of different voice effects. I love Blonde. tough that they had it up there. I don't think it's fair for it, but we get to our top 4. Purple Rain, the Beatles, and Michael Jackson. In that order, I'm putting Purple Rain above the Beatles, and I think Michael Jackson should have been number 1.
Really? I saw a lot of people debating whether or not
it's not.
I saw a lot of people debating whether or not they picked the right Michael Jackson album, and that maybe they should have picked Bad instead of Thriller. Yeah.
But that just shows you how good he is, man. I would argue both of them should have been on there. But I think Thriller, like even Beatles would have made more sense to me. They got a living member. I think he could have gone to go pick it up.
Right.
Obviously, Prince can't go get it, but like I ran it back. I went back and listened to the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Yeah, it's a banger of an album, bro.
It's always better than you remember it to be.
Yeah.
Like every time you revisit it, it feels that much more beautiful, that much more fully realized. There's no bad songs on it. There's a real good case to make that Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is the best album of all time. I saw that and I didn't have an issue with it. I mean,
my favorite.
The thing is, like you might like want to say it should go to a more classically Jackson or the Beatles or Stevie Wonder or whoever, but I think that is also part of what the job of list makers is to make interesting choices and to sometimes make provocative choices and sort of challenge your assumption of whether or not the classics really should be held above some more contemporary stuff. So that's one of the things that I think is an interesting challenge that Apple tried to do with this list and worked in some places better than others.
I'm surprised they didn't have enough country. I know not everyone's big country fans, but I feel like that needs to be put into place. You could put a Willie, you could put a what's his name? That it wasn't even a country album, right? I would have given you that. I'm a big fan of her country albums.
Yeah.
Reba, you got Garth Brooks is one of the biggest selling artists of all time. Like he has some records over what's his name? Michael Jackson. No Whitney Houston.
Yeah,
no Whitney Houston.
I think I saw Luna in the live stream commenting on this. The list made them realize Whitney Houston has amazing songs, but not amazing albums, according to Luna.
No, but that's right. That was the point you were making as well. It's when do you deal with something? In terms of
Luna mentioned no Fiona Apple. No Fiona Apple is weird. I 100% agree. Absolutely could use a Fiona Apple album.
But they had Alanis Morissette, so it's like practically interchangeable. So no Elvis.
Are there great Elvis albums? I feel like he had better singles than albums. And this is me just not being a great Elvis historian, so sorry if I'm completely wrong here, but I always took him to be more about his singles than his albums.
Yeah. Well, hopefully when they redo it, they'll add more Nav, more Gunna, all the classics out there.
Little Ice
but I'm curious to know people's thoughts. Let us know your top 100 albums that were missing from this list. What alternative ones? Again, I would have picked it In Rainbows. Zach had me listening to all the Radiohead on one of our Sundance trips. Maybe it's because In Rainbows was my first one to listen to, or the backstory of it. But that one schmacks, bro.
Yeah,
they deserve 3. There were some artists that deserved more than 1, in my opinion.
Look,
they would have been 1. Kendrick would have been 1.
If the Disconnect podcast did an entire season about your album, it maybe deserves to be on here.
There you go. So.
Speaking of which, like probably my most contemporary pick for album that could be on here that's not, I think you could put that Chance album on here low on the list. I think that which was the one? Yeah,
not the Big Day.
no, the one before, right? The one that
was it Acid Rap, and then why am I blanking on his third album?
I'm forgetting the name of it right now too, but it's that Chance is a 3. Classic modern rap album.
Yeah, why am I blanking on his album, bro? Coloring Book. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I could see that, but hey, until the next one, let us know your thoughts down below for Intercut Music Podcast. As we move on, back to the films. Our boy Ewan went over to Cannes. It's what year? What year you got?
It's the 76th.
Well, no,
77th. This is from last year.
But you've been there how many times?
Third time.
Third time. But you said it hasn't been the best time.
No, it wasn't. I think last year really there was some high set with some of my favorite films. My favorite film playing at the festival as well. A couple of films in my top 10, top 5, top 3, and there's maybe 2 this year that I could see stay at the top there. But a lot of films from filmmakers that, you know, there's a reason to be hyped about them that were just a bit of a letdown, especially the first half of the festival. I feel like a lot of people were saying this is a huge miss for the fest. And then we had a couple of late bloomers. People were a bit more happy about the selection. But overall, I feel like it's still a bit of a letdown overall when it comes to what they showed this year.
Yeah, that was my general sense from just reading the film Twitter scuttlebutt, that like the first few days of Cannes were lacking like a real heavy hitter, a real knockout movie, unless you were somebody who like really responded to Megalopolis or something like that. But then as the festival rounded out, there were a couple stragglers that ended up, you know, not just being some critics' favorites, but prize winners as well.
Yeah. Do you guys want to go over what won the big prizes to the other stuff, I guess?
Big shout out to Ewan as well. Go check out his podcast, Quiet on Set podcast. I know he's going to have a bunch of coverage there. He's got a whole list over on Letterboxd as well. So go follow all that. I'll let you take it away, man.
Yeah, it's upcoming stuff. So right now, I only have like some short thoughts. We did Furiosa, and then in our segment, what we've been watching, I talked about like Megalopolis a bit. The biggest films, the substance, stuff like that. But I will be doing every single film that I caught, which was 65 this year, by far the most I've seen, I think, at any fest that I was in person. I think only in Sundance at 2020 or 2021. No, 2021. I was able to see more just because it was digital.
Yeah, the virtual year,
Virtual, that was a great year.
I think I snuck in like 60 something there as well, but it was intense, and I feel like it was a great experience all around. And we got some great films, and I will be going over all of them, and I'll have like short reviews, but I need a couple of days to process stuff. And
catch up on some sleep, please. Why don't we start with some of the movies that were from like pretty recognizable filmmakers? Because I think those were the ones that had a lot of hype going into the fest, and the one that at least Arturo and I were most excited to hear the buzz on turned out to be one of your least favorites of the festival. Tell us what is going on in Megalopolis, because I
couldn't tell you. I could not tell you what's going on in Megalopolis. So compared to my peers at the fest, I think I was the most negative on it. I gave it a half star, and I think negative. I think it's a bit like I was a bit too harsh on it, but I saw its shortcomings in what it was trying to do, failing at every step of the way. And I feel like the people who were a bit more positive on it, they were seeing the potential of what this movie could be, what it never is to me. But then they kind of say, hey, praising Coppola for trying something new or different or whatever it is. I just think it's a mess from beginning to end. Even the stuff that they praised, like Aubrey Plaza kind of fitting in with an awkward energy. That's just that's just her, I guess, her performance. That's not to him being a good director and getting good moments out of performances out of his cast. It's really no scene feels like it's connected, and there's a story that kind of ties from beginning to end. You get these moments from everyone, but they're so bizarre that they don't fit together in the same film. And I was really annoyed by the film because it constantly throws some visual like weird stuff at you. Like there's halfway through the film, there's like a scene where the camera swivels back and forth in like from one Dutch angle to the other one at like a dinner scene for no reason. And then Shia LaBeouf goes, whoa! And like he's just crazy in the film.
Yeah.
I was at a loss. I don't know what he was trying to achieve. I don't know what his big vision was. To me, it was big old Megaflopolis.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a lot of people looking at the film's disparate ratings and divisive reactions and declaring like, oh, we have our new Babylon. But just in reading the actual substance of the reviews, my takeaway was this feels a little bit more like it might be this year's Aggro Drift, just a like truly ambitious attempt from an auteur filmmaker that does not quite land. Is that a fair comparison to make?
I think that's a perfect comparison to make. It's definitely not Babylon. It's more Aggro Drift than anything else.
Yeah, because like the style, I'm sure is firmly on display. But
yeah,
I think I saw Karsten in his review said that he was, into it and with it for a little bit, and then it just sort of wears you down.
It does. Yeah, it's just kind of grinds you through with throwing so much at you, but actually nothing that you can hold on to. Like Adam Driver has this like huge thing that he is supposed to stand for, and they talk about it like the opposition to him, and John Carlo Esposito is more of like the traditional guy, and he's the other one who comes in and is able to stop time and like wants to innovate and has this technology and all of it. And instead of doing anything with that or actually showing something of that character, they just end up having the same conversations for like 140 minutes. And it is a really frustrating loop that has a lot of interesting visuals if you want to have like an acid trip, and it's pretty fun, then I guess go with this film. But it to me, where I was like hoping that I'd actually get something out of it, I didn't get anything out of it. And then I also thought that all of the female characters were like horribly written as well. Another problem that like something like Horizon also had with the female characters in there. To me, a big miss, but I feel like it's exciting that this movie is so divisive that like but I feel like it's not gonna find a big audience.
I'm still like really excited and eager to see it just because it is eliciting these gigantic reactions from people, but at the same time maybe I'm going into it a little bit more hesitantly than I would have without your review.
That's raw. I love how the IMDb is at a 7. I don't even know what to call this right here.
Yeah,
that's it reminds me of my homeland. That's a Swiss mountain range.
That has to be one of the wildest
letterbox curves.
Easily. Yeah. Is that even that?
It's not even a curve.
Right? No, you're right. It's curves.
Yeah.
Up and down, up and down. All right. We don't have a date for this yet, right?
No, I don't think there's an American distributor yet, so there would be no date.
IMAX, I guess. The single showings in IMAX that they have
IMAX
secured.
showing thing.
Yeah, so, they have a couple of those
at some point this year. But Ewan, you got to tell us what did the moment
oh my god
when somebody gets up to speak to the screen feel like did you think there was awkward. A heckler all of a sudden, or
I did actually think it was a heckler, because for some reason I thought it was a tech error and someone was grabbing the mic to tell us we're so sorry, because it happened before in Gun this year. I didn't have any tech issues. I feel like maybe the whole presentation of Megalopolis from what they shot was a tech issue, but he got up and like the screening got the screen got smaller, which was really awkward because it didn't fit properly, and he was just standing there, one line, and then he held a thing and he was standing there for like 3.5 minutes just nodding along to like Adam Driver saying stuff back to him, and he didn't really have any lines. Like that part of it felt really performative just to get big reactions out of it.
So it's not even that he had a line, it was like he was sort of involved with the scene for a couple minutes.
He got up, said the one thing, and then he basically was just like pretending to take notes in like a courtroom thing where Adam Driver's character is like in court, and he's like, I think, a lawyer character. But that scene is so confusing that I didn't even know what was going on, because it took me out of it so much, as you could expect, because the house lights came on for that scene. It's like so weird because you couldn't even see the screen, or you could still see the screen, but it was a really odd experience. Also, I wasn't in the big theater. I was in a smaller one for this. And it definitely would have played differently maybe on a bigger screen, but it was just real awkward.
Getting a little cameo from your cat.
Well, yeah. There's two gun hats on the side, and he's not really happy about like that it takes up the space that he's
Hey,
usually.
no, go back to. Was that a
lying
Talk to
on.
Me poster?
That is a Talk to Me poster over there. Yeah, it's really
Woo!
in the dark. Yeah.
I noticed it though. That's actually. We were actually going to have a segment here, so all the Intercuties watching at home, someone was going to come up and ask a question while we're actually recording right now. I guess that would just be a live chat, right?
Have you had Francis Ford Coppola's wine recently?
Is IGN trolling? Giving it a 9?
Yeah, Sid and Tadlaka, I think, gave it a 9 out of 10.
I mean,
on
IGN
and
gives everything a 9, don't they? Isn't that what they're known for? So
is it because it felt like you were in Megalopolis?
I couldn't say it was an immersive feeling. I did swivel along as the camera went to like in the Dutch angles and stuff like that. So like you can have a great time with Megalopolis. I don't think it's like it's somewhat a serious movie that also wants to have a ton of fun. And I just don't know what it was trying to go for. And that's just the most perplexing thing to me. But yeah, you can certainly enjoy it if you're like ready for what you're about to experience.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like a lot of people are really reacting. At least the people who like it are really reacting to the ambition of it, and not necessarily the experience of watching it. But
I don't think I'll give it a half star when I rewatch it. I'm just gonna say it. I feel like my experience on the second time around is gonna be a bit better than the first one.
Nice.
But yeah.
All right, well, hopefully you had a better experience with Andrea Arnold's movie, Bird. This is a movie that I think was another one of the highly anticipated films coming into Cannes. I had this on my list of potential Oscar contenders for this year that I talked about earlier. How did it land for you? What did you think?
Yeah, so I think it was working for me quite well. Obviously, to keep away from giving anything away, although I feel like the journalists haven't done a great job at concealing maybe something that like stuff that happens later on in the film. I didn't really love where it ends up, but there's some interesting performances in here that I quite liked. I feel like those are the highlights. Frank Rogowski is so oddly weird, where he like behaves like a bird in the film. He like perks up on a building over and over again. He's quite creepy in the film, but he's also very charming and very he's just a delight. I feel like seeing him pop up in roles where he can just do something fun and make a really compelling character that you like each time he pops up as a supporting player. You're like, oh, I'm in for a fun scene again. There's like a recurring bit with a toad that is incredibly funny. Probably the best thing about it. But Andrea Arnold, she has a unique sense of capturing something that feels raw and those like odd moments. I know she prefers to shoot as much as she can authentically. I mean, if you look at her filmography, depicting the life of two cows and cow, or that's raw. She likes to shoot. As you can see, like they just have the camera rolling, and she starts shooting wildlife as well. That's a couple of moments in here that are pretty beautiful, and then really
she tries to keep the films feeling very like loose.
Yeah, and that comes together in this one quite a bit, like the wildlife, the nature aspects of wanting to be free, as well as like a 12-year-old, which, by the way, a great performance from Nikaya Adams, I think is her name. What I can say about Gunn, maybe the overall selection wasn't great, but I feel like all of the child performances were actually pretty good. And I'm usually someone who's not a big fan of whenever we need to have like younger actors in a scene when it doesn't really work. I feel like it really worked more often than not this year on. And people are gonna have different opinions on this one, though. I don't think everyone's gonna love it. There's gonna be quite a few who aren't gonna connect with it, and for others, I feel like it's gonna be their favorite film of the year.
Sick. All right, I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah,
did he make the right choice, Barry? Leaving Gladiator for this?
I gotta have to see Gladiator. Which role did he give up? Like who replaced him?
I have no idea.
Yeah, he wasn't in the Mescal role. He was a supporting role, but
that makes more sense then. We did have a question. Would you consider it Arnold's most experimental film?
To be fair, I have only seen Fish Tank and Cow. I still haven't
Okay.
seen American Honey and Wasp. But between those three, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Especially with the ending as well.
Interesting. You said that it may be divisive when people get a chance to see it. I have a feeling that this next one is also going to be divisive. Let's talk about Ali Abbasi's new film. This one's called The Apprentice. It is the story of a young Donald Trump, as well as his political, as well as the political advisor Roy Cohn. Trump is played by Sebastian Stan, whereas Roy Cohn is played by Jeremy Strong. A couple pretty well-regarded actors. This is also, as we mentioned, director Ali Abbasi, who has made a couple of movies that we liked before in Border, and we talked about Holy Spider on the podcast as well. Here he
Really?
Yeah, it's this dude.
Yeah, there was a protest. I was at the festival and at the premiere for that one where they stormed the red carpet for Holy Spider.
I remember that. Yeah,
I was there.
Yeah,
wow,
so
I think those are both standouts. Okay.
Yeah, a filmmaker who's taken a look at some international situations, now lending his eye to an American figure. So, what was your takeaway from The Apprentice?
I feel like this one is probably his safest film to date. I don't think it does anything crazy with The Apprentice, and I think it has to walk the really thin line for Sebastian Stan of not going into a caricature of something that we've seen since 2015-16 so much with him, where he needs to sprinkle in the mannerisms a bit more as we get to see more and more of Trump as he gets older, and
because he's also
he gets his
playing
power.
He's playing a young Trump here, but how far into the future does it go? Like, how many years does this movie span?
I don't know if you would regard this as a spoiler per se, but I guess it's a biopic. But it goes up until the way of like his self-written. No, not the presidential stuff. It goes into just his autobiography. That's like one of the final scenes with the writer there.
So prior to like the whole NBC Apprentice show and stuff like that.
That's like that's where that's why it's interesting, because like The Apprentice is never there's not a single scene. Yeah, no, that's not a part of it.
He never says you're fired.
No. Well, I know he might say that to someone,
but not in the
not in the context of
The Apprentice.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
that's
Art's not interested anymore.
Dude, I have lost. What a bait and switch.
It's also like it's interesting that like the best performance doesn't come from Sebastian Stan, but Jeremy Strong. I feel like he's better as Roy Cohn in this, and
not entirely surprising.
Yeah,
hey, I got to see him. Was it 3 inches away from you?
Basically, I'll talk about that later. But yeah.
Oh. Well, I had seen someone said in the chat that Trump actually hit it with a cease and desist. So
yeah,
marketing is going full on.
Yeah, Abbasi has been tweeting as well, going like, "Thank you for the extra promotion and stuff like that." Yeah.
But you said you enjoyed this one, right?
I did like it. I gave it like a 4 out of 5. I think it's gonna resonate with a lot of people, but it's also gonna be dismissed easily because it feels like it's not really condemning him as much. Because I think what Abbasi's film tend to do with Holy Spider as well, where we got to see like a lot of the really gruesome kills, and people criticized it for embellishing the violence and staying in it. This is also the rise of power, and it's way more about like the system that can be exploited in capitalism of these greedy, evil men that get to exploit it. It's more about that than it is about Trump. So it's more of like a cycle where it goes from Roy Cohn as like his as an advisor, and it then it shifts kind of into where like obviously Trump has the upper hand in that relationship, and you're almost like growing sympathetic for Roy Cohn. That's what I saw some people like criticize the film for, that you feel like you feel sorry for him. But that exactly. I don't get that, because like that's just that's just intelligent, challenging filmmaking when you disagree with a character, and I don't know. It doesn't need to be spelled out to you. It's not Atlas where like the whole exposition has to be come to you. To me, it was quite strong. Yeah.
All right, back in.
Very cool. Yeah, so I don't know if I was anticipating Ali Abbasi's take on Donald Trump. I would expect Paul Schrader to give us a Donald Trump movie. Instead, he's made Oh Canada, which is another one of his many late in life movies about creatives in different series. I don't know. Does Jacob Elordi sit and journal in this film, or?
He's being ready to be put into fan cams, as he always is.
Good to know that he's going to provide for the people in that regard. But
there's a scene, where he's like, I think only in underwear, and I think Paul Schrader had a quote that he wrote something on the underwear because no one else was like was brave enough, I guess, to do it. I don't know what that quote all was about. It was an odd one, but yeah, this movie is a bit all over the place.
Yeah, so Elordi plays the young version of the Richard Gere character who fled the Vietnam draft for Canada, and now I guess is kind of looking back at it, back at that time. Did this one was this one interesting for you? Where would you rank it among the recent movies that we've got from Paul Schrader?
I think it would be a bit towards the lower end, although I did kind of like all of his stuff. I liked Master Gardener. I did like the Card Counter. Obviously, First Reformed was the strongest one, and this one would be, I guess, below all these other three, but I did like them. So I don't know. I know some people really didn't like Master Gardener, but this is an adaptation of Russell Banks' Forgone. Was also like at the end. I think he died in 2023. I haven't read the book. This was given to me by Chase Hutchinson. I was sharing rooms with him.
Nice.
He wrote for now I'm blanking on Collider and Seattle Times. Great reviews, by the way. But
shout out Chase Hutchinson.
Yeah, he gave me the book, and I haven't read it yet. But this movie is a bit all over the place, and from what he tells me, it's actually like a really close adaptation of the novel. In a way that it's a bit all over the place, where it's basically about this documentary filmmaker who has ex-students of his come by his house. He's really old and sick, and he tells stories and goes in and out of non-linear storytelling in a way, and also maybe being an unreliable narrator in a sense. And then that's just visualized by the younger version of him, played by Jacob Elordi. And it's funny. I saw this one with Justin from the Oscar Expert and with Luke, who has also a YouTube channel, and they both like fell asleep because it was pretty late when we saw this one. And then they asked me like what the movie was about, and I feel like that kind of represents what the film was, because they missed parts of it, but they got the gist of it all, because it wants to be kind of thrown together and a bit confusing. I feel like it doesn't really work because the novel seems to be a bit more dense and easier to jump around. And when we have that narrative movie form, I feel like a movie that did that great with showing us what is reality, what's the perception of a character, was The Father, with like dementia and stuff like that. When you visualize it this way with flashbacks, it doesn't really work as well. But I still quite like the film. But yeah, I feel like there's got to be more intelligent people who got to tell me what's good and what's bad about this one, who've also read the novel. But at this point, I thought it was all right.
Nice. Yeah, there's always plenty of interesting themes and subjects layered into Paul Schrader's writing. So I'm curious to get a chance to not just see it, but also read other people's writing on it, because I feel like I'm always finding new depths from other people's takeaways on his work. Should we talk about Guy Maddin's film Rumors? Because Guy Maddin is a really interesting filmmaker, and I did not know what to expect for this one.
I didn't either, and it's it starts off real silly, and this whole movie is like really silly, and it plays with the dynamics of already setting up the like Italian guy at this G7 summit as like the butt of every joke. And we have the representatives there. Obviously, Cate Blanchett, who's someone who's everyone's familiar with, plays the German representative. And everyone has kind of their moment to shine in a really silly movie. Ultimately, this film is going for the laughs more than it is going for like anything of substance. And at one point, the comedy is going to run dry, especially if a movie runs for 2 hours. And that same premise, I feel like, has run its term around like an hour in, and then it just kind of keeps going and going. So yeah, ultimately, I feel like it had a lot of really funny laughs. If you click on my review, I ranked the different countries by like how funny they were. And Italy, yeah, was the winner there. But yeah, it's an entertaining film. It's like just all set in the woods where they're like left alone, and there's like some kind of almost zombie creatures or they're like coming to life, and it's just them having dumb conversations with each other. Slight political jabs, but it's not that political. I think it's entertaining, but it's very slight.
Okay.
All right. Maybe the fodder for some Kate Blanchett gifs later on.
For sure. Yeah. There's some gift-worthy moments in it. Yeah.
Nice. Let's talk about Kevin Costner and whether or not he gets any gift-worthy moments in Horizon American Saga Chapter 1, which, as the title implies, is Chapter 1 of a longer American saga. We're getting Part 2 in theaters later this year. Part 1, Chapter 1, I should say, I believe will be in theaters in June, whereas Part 2 maybe in August. And he's already at work on Chapters 3 and 4. These are being released, I believe, through Warner, or is it Paramount? Costner, coming off of the much loved Yellowstone series, has gotten a lot of work on screen as a cowboy, but he's back behind the camera in the director's chair, just as he was with Dances with Wolves, which, lest we forget, it was a Oscar-winning movie. So, Ewan, does Costner still have it as a filmmaker and star, or are you not ready to sail off into the horizon with more installments from this franchise?
Go see Open Range over this one. I feel like you infinitely get more out of it, and I feel like that's a really good Western. I'm not the most knowledgeable person on Westerns. I don't think I've seen a ton of them. I probably have seen around like 20 or 30 at most. And here he sets up this saga that never gets going enough, where we are with different groups. And like his character comes in, I think like an hour into the film. It's doing the Mad Max Furiosa approach, I guess. And he writes himself into this story as like someone that like a younger character is like swooning over, and she falls for him pretty immediately. So that's already like an odd choice. And then there's like a group of a caravan that's like comes in, I think like an hour or later into the film. So it does like a storytelling that picks up different characters that are ultimately going to cross over in the future installments of this saga. And the funny thing is, I feel like it's the most telling about it, which also feels like incredibly insecure overall in the presentation of this, is that the movie ends not with credits or anything, but with like a 5 or maybe even 7-minute montage of the upcoming story. And it's
on the next episode of Horizon American Saga.
It was perplexing because you get to see so much of what's going to happen, like characters who've never seen each other in like quick little moments, almost already kind of giving you sort of a conclusion to what's going to happen at the end
of
this
season.
It's like, okay, he just wanted to get it out there because Netflix going to cancel the second season, or like it's a gift of that kind of vibe. And I don't know what that was. It to me, it was like a 3-star. And then that whole final thing just like took it down a bit to me, because it felt like so out of place. And I don't know what it was for. Was it just for fun? Is it going to have that in the theatrical version as well? Because it also wasn't like a trailer that you could show. I feel like it shows too much at the end there. And then the characters aren't really written that well. Like I said before with Megalopolis, I think the women characters are just kind of dumb, or they're just like prostitutes and dumb, or like there's nothing and they're not like written outside of that stereotype. It's not like that's a bad thing. You could have those characters and they could be great written, great characters, whatever, but it has some Western feels to it, but it never goes to the heights of like some of the great Western bits. And I feel like there's so much passion, obviously, from him, and so much of his own money, one of his homes invested in this film, that I was a bit perplexed that there's not much more than, I guess, just like pretty good production design. But then the story, on the story level, I feel like it is a bit of a letdown.
This is 181 minutes. So how is there
four? Yeah.
How is there 4 when it already feels like 4 movies in one?
He's been TV brained. He Yellowstone's completely changed how he thinks story works.
We have Yellowstone at home.
It does feel a bit episodic at times, especially with how broken apart these different storylines are, with different groups of characters that we get to follow. I feel like people who like Westerns more might get more out of it than I did. But I mean, if you look at the Letterboxd curve, there's almost no one who gave it like a 4.5 or a 5.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely more on the IMDb side for people. The IMDbers. I think they're sitting at an 8, and then seems right now the average is 3. Big middle finger up to the Western.
Guess so.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe Costner didn't quite have what it takes, but another legendary filmmaker debuted a new vision in Cannes, and that would be Cronenberg's film The Shrouds. I don't know, this one got a bit of a negative reaction. We can see on the live stream the Letterboxd curve is way tilted to the left.
I think it's a bit misleading, though. I don't think it's that bad. It's just the performances are very campy and a bit weird. It's also like the Vincent Kessel of it all. Like his accent definitely adds to, and Diane Kruger, I think, is also German. It adds to this feeling a bit odd in places where like there's big monologues, or like the way it's written is very highbrow, and like the way that they talk is elevated. And it doesn't really fit with Vincent Kessel.
Yeah,
it's just and then I think the whole premise of this film, which is like these bodies covered in shrouds, and then there's screens where people can mourn and look through the screen. And it's not just a camera, but they're like in this digital scan thing that really is like put around them. So it's also like a tech film in a way. And it's also about like conspiracies at one point. It's just one too many ideas that it throws at you. There's also just like a couple of really random sex scenes. I mean, it's Cronenberg, so it's also kind of about desire in a way. Mm-hmm. And I feel like people went in expecting something going in depth about grief, and instead of just like looking at that closer, it's more about like the messiness of grief and never really going deeper into it.
Because I believe this is, I could be wrong on this, one of the first films he's worked on, and maybe not the first, but one of the first films he's worked on after his wife's death, and he's processing some of that own personal grief through this movie. But I heard a lot of similar things to you, in that there's like a lot of ideas going on here. I do think it's worth pointing out that the last Cronenberg movie to premiere at Cannes was Crimes of the Future. And I feel like a lot of people had a similarly perplexed reaction to that one. But as it's come out and people have had more time to sit and marinate with it, I think people are pulling out the good aspects of that movie. And I just wonder sometimes if Cronenberg is a filmmaker who makes films that are not the most palatable in a festival environment. Where people, like he doesn't make movies that are easily digestible or like breezy, so you get a lot of like very confused reactions to them. And I know for me, I don't normally know how I feel about a Cronenberg movie until I think about it a month after I've seen it.
That's why I said like the curve is wrong. I think this is going to come up in quite a major way once more people see it, because there's a lot to chew on there. But I don't know if, like you said, festivals might not be the great setting for it.
All right, I want to talk quickly about 2 other movies before we move on to the award winners. Do you want to let us know what you thought about Jia Zhangke's Caught by the Tides? Because I heard something pretty interesting in that he had apparently been working on this movie in some sense for over 20 years or something like that.
Okay. So yeah, this was one of the films that I missed, and then on my last day of like catching up, I finished all of the 22 competition films.
Nice.
That and Limonov, which by the way, Limonov, pretty bad. I didn't like that one. That was the one with Ben Whishaw. And this one just kind of solidified something that I noticed off festival. Maybe it's something new that I realized. Watching films that feel like they just have a camera placed and then stuff just happens. And it feels like there's not a lot of direction given, and there's not a lot of like visual input there. And then you leave a scene and don't cut because, well, that's more authentic and that's what you captured. I hate those types of movies. I can't stand them. I want the direction, do something to like tell a story. And this movie was, I guess, at the end of the festival, just more of that. I feel like people are going to take away something more than I did. I quite disliked it, but yeah, it spans a long time. It actually is surprising to me that he was working on it for so long. But there was another film like last year that was, I think, 4 hours and 20 minutes or something like that. It was like a documentary by Wang Bing about like workers in a factory that didn't get enough pay, and I really didn't connect with that one. Yeah, Spring Youth.
That one, yeah.
I couldn't stand it. It was, and I sat through the whole thing. And then people really loved it, and they had some great things to say about it, and some stuff that they appreciated. I just in the moment couldn't. So there might be more to this that I didn't see. But yeah, I didn't really like it. It's like a bit of a love story, but I never felt like it's so subdued and small that there's no real passion coming from there. It's a way, maybe a bit about like loneliness and connecting. There's another film that's like very similar where like someone can't reach someone, but they go after them, but they have no way of reaching them, and that's the one that got we can talk about it once we get to the awards, but the one for best director, Grand Tour, was another one where like the wife goes after her husband or a fiance, and he's kind of fleeing from her, and here it's like a similar thing towards the end there. But yeah, I really felt the runtime with this one. But I mean, he's a great filmmaker for some of his other stuff. I think there's some good stuff there. But yeah, didn't really connect with Caught by the Tides.
Yes. Going from a legendary filmmaker to, I believe, a debut filmmaker. We like Noémie Merlant a lot for her work in front of the camera from movies like Portrait of a Lady on Fire or Jumbo more recently. But she's taken up work as a director for The Balconettes, which I believe has been pitched as like a horror comedy of sorts. What did you make of her? I want to say directorial debut, but Art, maybe you can check if I'm just talking out of my ass.
These might be shorts, but no, she had one in 2021.
Okay, there we go.
One or more. She's also in both, I guess, and then some shorts.
The Balconettes is fucking fun. It's so much fun.
Okay.
So it's like I think my rating might even go up a bit. I think it's closer to an 8 than it is a 6.
Okay.
It's a ton of fun, and it's so messy. I kind of that like what does it say, like a horror comedy? Is that what it's?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to. Too. I feel like you shouldn't box it into a genre per se. It's definitely is like a comedy, but then there's some I guess more serious stuff that happens. It's also a bit like, with the substance there, I can't really call anything else horror, because like that elevates the horror genre to a whole other level, that movie. But this one, it's fun. It's got some fun dynamics. Celine Sciamma was a co-writer on it.
Okay.
And it's got messy characters. It's got a messy plot. It's got like, they make dumb decisions that don't make sense at times, but in a way it reminded me a bit of maybe not a good comparison, but of Superbad. I don't know. Sometimes you're just like in the you're just in it and you don't question anything about it. It's just like, oh, this is a good bit.
Cool.
And yeah, I thought it was a ton of fun, and I can't wait for more people to see it.
Amazing.
You just had to say Superbad, bro.
I wanted to
Add it
say
the watch
Superbad.
list.
Hell yeah.
Oh man. All right, so those are some of the standouts. I think things that we were interested in before the festival, but there were a bunch of movies that picked up awards at the festival that are also films that I think we're very excited to see. The movie that, in my perspective from here, that got the most effusively positive praise, the most people saying that this was the best thing they saw at Cannes, ended up winning the Best Screenplay Award. Coralie Fargat won for their film The Substance. This is the same filmmaker behind the French revenge film Revenge. What did you think about this one, which stars Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley?
I feel like I'm a broken record, but this is a ton of fucking fun. It's oh my god. Yeah, so this is like, okay, so we had Cronenberg at this festival, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like almost an attack on his territory. I was like, you know this dude who's good at body horror? Yeah, that's body horror at home. Let me show you what's in the
Damn.
theater.
Mopped him.
Yes. This movie had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I thought at times that like I gotta make some better health choices or I'm about to have a heart attack, but no, this is just this movie. It's this tense. It's this. I wanted it to end the whole entire time, but I also never wanted it to end. It has a great flow. I feel like it is one of the best edited films I've seen in a while. And yeah, it's just great from beginning to end. I feel like it's gonna have, you know, those films where you get like a lot of walkouts because people are so disgusted by it or they're shocked or anything. This is the movie this year where that's going to happen.
Amazing.
And just the premise, I don't know if you guys have read more about like the
Not
premise
much.
of it all.
Yeah, it's like one teaser. That's it.
Yeah, which it shows her, I guess, with the introductory video that she has plays about like 20 minutes into the film. It doesn't waste a ton of time. It's basically Demi Moore as an actress who's like doing this daily or weekly fitness thing where she like dances and does that on TV. She's won an Oscar. The movie starts with like her Walk of Fame star, and basically gives a montage top down as it like she gets irrelevant over time and just people throw shit on it in a way that it's just passing by.
That's funny.
It's beautiful, beautifully done and kind of representing a lot there. And I think it has a ton of themes baked into obviously the just kind of disposal of women after a certain age in media where they're lesser valued, but Coralie is a filmmaker who doesn't make that the center point of like the dialogue at all times. It's just like it's very in your face without getting too caught up with the semantics and talking about it, but it fully leans into its premise and just gets crazier and crazier as you get along. Margaret Qualley is also amazing in it. Dennis Quaid gets to do a really repulsive character, like probably the most repulsive character I've seen all year. And I watched Sebastian Stan as Donald Trump. So that's got to speak for something. This movie is incredible. To me, it wasn't the most busted up film. I think that was still like an aura overall, but it was really close up there.
I was up there, online. I kept seeing a lot of split talk as well when it comes to, I guess, the audience in terms of I saw a lot of people make it between men versus women, which I find very interesting.
It seemed like not only hated it but thought you were evil somehow for liking it. Pretty intense divide between people. But you were mentioning how The Substance was a big hit, with people, we have the Out Now Con jury grid here on the live stream, and of all the films on the grid, The Substance, number 2 with that average of 5.4. You do it on a 6-point scale, so a lot of people really liking it. 6s across the board, except I think did you get a 5 here?
I give it a 5 because I was like, so the thing is, for me, I don't give 5 stars on my first watch. Like, rarely do I ever. I think Perfect Days last year at Gunn was kind of an exception for it. I usually don't do that. And with this one, I was like, I'm not there to, the way that they describe it on the jury grid is like a 6 is a masterpiece. I was like, I don't know if I'm right up there, because it does run for 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I feel like you cut it down a tiny bit, make it a bit tighter, although it already has a great pacing. And I didn't feel that about Anora. That's why, like, that's the only 6 I gave this festival. But yeah, this is 1 and 2. Anora 1, Substance number 2. I feel like the best 2 films of the fest, and the one that definitely everyone should watch list.
More hardcore than Titan?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, easy. Yeah. The body horror is crazy. Like, I think I wrote in my, what did I write in my review? I think I said, good fucking God, the body horror. That's just that's all you got to think about is like, this has got to get like a makeup award at the Oscars. It's got to be appreciated. It's great stuff.
It's good.
All right, so moving on in the awards, another award-winning film was the
Seed of the Sacred Fig.
Yes, Seed of the Secret Fig, which was Mohamed Razoulov's film, which had a lot of interest on it specifically because the filmmaker was sentenced to 8 years in jail by Iran, the country he originates from, and ultimately had to escape the country in order to avoid that prison sentence, as well as attend Cannes with this movie. Not the first time that we've heard a story like that out of Iran, unfortunately, in their filmmakers, but harrowing nonetheless, and pretty exciting that it resulted in an award-winning movie at Cannes.
Yeah,
y'all remember this one? There Is No Evil.
Yeah, incredible film. Anthology, right? About 5 different stories.
That he filmed it as short films because he wasn't allowed to make a feature film, so he filmed 5 short films to make a feature film. Tell me, bro, how good is this one?
So it takes a while to get going. I felt really similarly about this one than I did with About Dry Grasses, where towards the end of that film, it really came together and was like, all the pieces were put into place. Where this one is a bit more straightforward. So it's like a family drama about like 2 teenage daughters, their mother, and the father who works for the government, who's a lawyer who basically puts people on death row and sentences them. And the story really sets up a lot of the perspectives of these different characters just through, I guess, their daily lives, before it, like in the second half of the film, focuses more on a specific instance where his gun goes missing, and that ensues a whole that just basically escalates the whole thing, because he needs to find that. It undercuts his position at work. He might get like fired, and there's constantly like protests going on, so they have a lot of like those tensions within the family, and they just simmer for like an hour and a half in this film. And in the second half of the film, because this movie is like 170 minutes long or something like that, it gets to go way more and more into these family dynamics that get broken in a way that can't be fixed anymore. It gets to a point of no return for them. And it does that while really, I guess, easily telling the story of the conflict within the nation of Iran. There's like a moment that got a lot of claps from people, where they basically have a confrontation with each other, and in the ways of it's not per se you who we are against, but you're within the system, so obviously you're going to agree with them without having a second thought. and that really resonated, I guess, with the audience and the growing frustration with just worldwide conflicts that are going on, where it feels like there's no progress being made. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. So I feel like this movie is going to resonate with a lot of people, although it's not going to be a knockout hit because it is an almost 3-hour long movie. You got to bring the patience for it. And I feel like it should have not gotten the award that it got, because it didn't get the first, second, third prize, directing, screenplay, acting prizes. It got like a special award.
Yeah.
And I feel like this one should have gotten a grand jury prize, which would have been the second prize. Yeah. I feel like that's where they got to go, because usually they spread the love around. And the film that got the third prize, which I guess we'll talk about maybe in a minute, ended up picking 2 prizes, and usually they all get 1. So I don't know why they double dipped with one film and gave this a special award. I don't know what Greta Gerwig was cooking up there, but I wasn't a big fan.
Yeah, Greta Gerwig, for people who don't know, was the head of the con jury this year. It was a pretty interesting con jury.
Yeah. And I think she was the first woman in like 7, 8, maybe even a decade.
I thought that was interesting until I saw who gave out the Palme d'Or.
I was in the screening. I was watching Limonov, so I don't know who gave it out. I didn't watch it.
George Lucas.
Oh, yeah. I did see that. Like I was walking back to my hotel room, and it took like 20 minutes for them to give out the final award. So I don't know what they were doing.
Hey, very interesting jury.
You were alluding to it, but let's maybe talk about that film that took the jury prize, as well as the prize for best actresses, which split amongst 4 different actresses. What do you think about Emilia Perez?
So I'm, if you look at my ratings and you compare it to the Letterboxd curve, I might be a bit of an outlier. I didn't like this film at all. I do appreciate Jacques Audiard. Maybe you guys are familiar with him. Mary's 13th District, The Sisters Brothers.
Great. Decent. A Prophet.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's like The Sisters Brothers has a better cast than it has like a screenplay.
Yeah.
And this is a musical. And like that's, yeah, it is. And my biggest gripe with the film is that the music is absolutely terrible. It is unlistenable. It's so bad. And I don't know where the love is coming from for this film. Obviously, it has like a story about like trans identity. I don't think that's why like people are easily jumping on with just giving support to it. I feel like there's something that they resonated with that I just didn't connect with. I also thought that like this is one of Zoe Saldana's worst performances. I'm a bit of a hating guy, I guess, in this moment, but I don't think Selena Gomez has had like a good acting role. Neither has she had a good song. So
but they're bringing back Wizards of Waverly Place for a reboot. So
she's only in a cameo. If she had like a recurring role, I would be all for it. But
so I'm confused. They gave all 4 actresses. They just told them to Mean Girls didn't split the prize, or
yeah. So one of them is like a late love interest for Emilia Perez, and Zoe Saldana plays a lawyer who helps this drug cartel guy to transition into a woman. And the way that it does that is like, it's obviously she has a lot of support for it, which is great globally, but for her character, she's so blindly supportive of Emilia Perez really quickly, where like this is derailing her whole life. It doesn't really make for a compelling character.
You didn't believe the character's motivations or actions. Yeah.
Even though if they're great, for like I support what she does, what she stands for.
Right.
But that's like not what we are going for when we want a good movie, in my opinion. And it's just the songs I got awful. I don't know. I was like, when I got up and people were like, woo, were like clapping and going crazy. I was like, did we just watch the same movie? I don't know.
Yeah, always weird when you have that experience at a festival of feeling like everybody around you was tuned into a different frequency. Of the 4 actresses that won or split this award, are any of them actually a lead actress?
Yes. Zoe Saldana.
It's her movie mostly?
Yeah. And then in the second 2/3 of the film, it's Carla Sofia Gascon as Emilia Perez. I think she's in the movie quite a bit, but the story is also like pretty bad. It goes from him having a lot of like power, obviously, with like being a drug boss, and then transitions wants a smaller life and wants to return to the family in a way. But it then becomes way more about like doing these altruistic things to stay close with the family, and it's like it all rings hollow because it doesn't feel like the character ever has to go through something difficult other than the hijinks of them not knowing that they transitioned. That's kind of the premise of the film, that Selena Gomez, who plays her wife, is like not aware of the change. She did that kind of in secret. It's like, I don't know, then it kind of undercuts the trans identity, because that would, for me, transitioning to that, but I'm not the perfect person to speak on this, I guess, but it feels like it undercuts it when you are turning into someone different, when it's just supposed to be, I guess, you going from your assigned sex to the sex that you're living. But here it also plays with the hijinks of making that a cover-up. So in the same, it wants to have both things at the same time, and I don't know if they kind of contradict each other. Where like I saw some people criticize it for that, but yeah, ultimately I guess it's not reflected in the people who rated it on Letterboxd.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm that's another one that I saw, particularly given its that the trans characters are so prominent in the film. A lot of trans film critics showing frustration that all these initial reactions are coming out of Cannes are coming from people who are not necessarily part of that community. So once that community gets a chance to see it, I'm curious to see how they will react to it.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that's exactly what I felt, that like it's not as supportive as it seems to be, because it tackles the subject with kind of in a triviality in a way that doesn't feel like it's holding a lot of substance.
All right, so you weren't super high on the winner for Best Actress or Actresses, but I'm hoping you got some better things to say about the film that won for Best Actor, and specifically the boy, the man, Jesse Plemons, taking center stage in the new Yorgos Lanthimos film, Kinds of Kindness, which luckily for us stateside is going to be in theaters in about a month. It's coming out late June. Tell me more about it.
So this one is another one that's just a ton of fun. So it's like 3 anthology stories that don't really have anything to do with each other, other than like one central one character that's tied through the titles. But it's more of like a joke. That character doesn't really have anything to do with the actual story. It's none of like the big actors that are cast in this, and they play completely different roles. And he is less on the wave of his last couple of films that maybe were a bit more widely accessible in a way. Like The Favorite, I feel like, was pretty straightforward, and as out there as maybe for some people Poor Things is, I feel like it's also still kind of straightforward. The Lobster as well. I feel like this one is closer to Dogtooth, where it's just weird for the sake of being weird. And Willem Dafoe in this, I feel like, was to me an even bigger highlight than Jesse Plemons. But Plemons is also incredible in this. Emma Stone as well. I had her written down as my pick for Best Actress. I think she's also really good in it. I don't know what I should say about it, because I feel like it's not that far away. And if you like Lanthimos, you're just going to experience it. And it's a type of film that really shines in being experienced for the first time and not really knowing where it goes, because it plays these bizarre world that it establishes pretty straight. And that's kind of the comedy for it. Like that's the thing in Dogtooth as well, right? Where you stay with that and you're like, huh, what is happening? And everyone kind of plays it straight. There's no big reaction to something really odd. And especially that first one where Willem Dafoe is like in a boss relationship to Jesse Plemons. The more it reveals, which I don't want to give anything away, the funnier it gets, because you're just like looking back at like scenes that you remember, and you're like, what happened? So this one is pleasant. The one thing that it might scare some people away is that like it is like 3 short films that aren't that short. It runs at 164 minutes, and it definitely goes 1, 2, 3 when it comes to quality, I think. So yeah, I think that first one is probably the strongest one, but yeah, not too long off until people can share their thoughts on it, and I'm interested to see what other people take away from it. I feel like it's one that is only going to get better as you get to rewatch it as well.
Can't wait for it. All right, we got a couple more award winners left. Let's talk quickly about one that I know you didn't love, even though it got some good reviews and won Best Director, Miguel Gomez for Grand Tour. What do you think people are taking away from this one, and why did it not work for you?
I'm just such a hater, man. It's just
all negativity from you today. Jeez.
Yeah. Go watch The Substance if you can. It's by the way, I think that's an August or October release date.
A September release date. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It's going to be shortly after TIFF, I believe. So North American audiences don't have to wait too long for that one either.
Yeah. Glad that it got distribution, because Neon, for me personally here in Switzerland, we don't get Neon distribution, so it might never might never get to see it on the big screen, which is a pity. Even Anora, right, with Neon, we don't know who's going to pick that up yet. Yeah, Grand Tour. So this one was so it's got the directing award, and the way that what's his name? I think Miguel Gomez directed it is he wasn't even, I think, there for most of it. From what I've read, it's like he directed it from, I guess, further away, which is, I guess, not why people praise it, but it has like a ton of style that it puts into it. It's part in black and white, and it's basically this odyssey of a character that's obviously running from something. You don't really know what he's running towards. You just know he's going away from something. And on the other side, later on, you have his bride to be who's going after him, and he's clearly trying to get away from her. I didn't really get much out of it other than that. To me, like, this movie kind of runs in circles over and over again. It definitely has like a strong visual and narrative style that he really sticks to. I just grew frustrated with it, especially by the female character, because she has like this very characteristic laugh that she does in like awkward moments, and to me, she legit does it like 30 times in the film, and I disliked it the first time, and she does it over and over again, and it kind of grinded me down. And yeah, I feel like this is one that I have to revisit. I'll have to read up on a couple of people who liked it more, and maybe I'll see something that I missed. But I can see why it got direction. I would have gone over. I would have picked like Andrea Arnold over it personally if I had a choice, or definitely not Megalopolis. But The Substance is also another thing where I would have chose that over screenplay if I had a choice. That or even The Girl with the Needle, I'd have given the directing award to. But I see where they're coming from. There's definitely a strong narrative style that he holds together with his directing.
Nice. The Grand Prix winner, essentially second place at Cannes, went to All We Imagine as Light from Payal Kapadia. I believe this is an Indian film that some people were really taken with. What was your response to All We Imagine as Light?
So this was one of the latecomers in the last 2 days. We got The Seed of a Sacred Fig, and then this one. And I think people were just kind of ready to jump on a film that they could say is like the new frontrunner for the Palme d'Or. Although it was like, no, this is supposed to be The Substance and Anora. I'm sorry. And this one's, it's a good film. All around, I think it's solid. It's about like the relationship between these I think the two nurses
And
and
roommates.
yeah, they're roommates as well. And I yeah, I just stuff that happens. I don't know. It's like,
Yeah.
oh god, it's mingling all together in my head right now.
Well, we got to catch it too. So since
Yeah,
this is
yeah. What
like,
do you guys think
I ain't
about it?
catch 63 of them, but from the what, like 5, 6ish that we had the screeners for, this one was good. I wouldn't say it was my favorite out of the ones that we got links for. This is pretty much covering two women who don't just work together in what is, I wouldn't call it it's like a labor clinic. They go through pregnancies. They're
Yeah.
giving out contraception. The younger one in particular is dating a Muslim boy, which becomes a really big talk around town because it's not just that she's going on dates, but it's also the fact that she's with someone who, you know, is looked down upon. Meanwhile, you have the older woman who has more of a higher position in the town, in the place, but her husband has been gone for a while. And what really starts the plot is that she gets a gift from that husband who she hasn't seen. And they start kind of contrasting between the two women. So one of them kind of using the stuff from her past and thus bestowing it on the younger one, and then the younger one going like almost treating her like a mother figure and having to deal with all of that baggage, even though she's trying to be her own. I thought the performances were pretty good. I thought it was shot pretty well. I did see a lot of people coming out of it like praising it, and I think having that context that you're saying of it being such a late release, that maybe that was something that a lot of people added to it. But I thought it was a solid drama. But I have a couple other ones that that I would definitely put on the top from our small selection.
Yeah, the Screen Daily Critics grid, which I know a lot of people reference, they seemed pretty taken with it, and ultimately, in their vote, it was the second highest placing film. It got a
I think you cut out again.
the seat and the. Oh, I'm cutting out again.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Well, I was talking about how on the Screen Daily poll that All We Imagine Is Light was one of the top 3 finishers among their jury grid. It tied, though, with the film that ultimately won the Cannes Film Festival Palme d'Or prize, that being Anora, which I believe was also your favorite film that you saw in France.
It's undeniable that one's the best. Yeah, pretty easily can say that was the best that I got to see this year in Cannes. Yeah, Sean Baker. I mean, we're all familiar with him. I'm a big fan, having not seen a ton of his films. I think Red Rocket is amazing. I still haven't seen the Florida Project, but this, I have to see the other ones. But I mean, this has a fair shot at being his best, because it fully leans into the messiness that he's really great with his characters, like the ambiguity of not giving us a clean protagonist that we can root for, but like and the titular Anora sometimes says the F slur, and you're like, ooh, each time you're taken aback, it's like, oh, what the fuck? It's not that F slur, by the way, that she says, but it like, there's something about the casting, something about the direction, something about that incredible screenplay and the flow of conversation that makes this movie hilarious. And then in moments when it wants to be slower, it actually gets to have those moments towards the end where it like hits you over the head, where you're like, I was in for this whole experience that like is over the top and silly and kind of dumb, where she, as a young sex worker, gets involved with a son of a Russian billionaire, and they end up doing a quick marriage, and
of course,
as you do. And the parents aren't too happy about that.
Yeah,
and
I heard this is like a Pretty Woman that turns into Uncut Gems or something like that.
I had the feeling of Uncut Gems throughout this, like the way that the people talk over each other, the way that they're like just kind of mad at each other the whole time, is like, yes, this is Uncut Gems. I feel like it's on the same level as Uncut Gems when it comes to the quality as well. Wow. And I really like Uncut Gems. I think was one of my favorite films of that year, although it was a really strong year, I guess, in 2019.
Fantastic, yeah.
Also, the casting of the Russian guy who's 21. he so perfectly captures being this little shitbag. It's great. And then some of the supporting cast who is like working for the family, but lives in America. The dynamics that come out of that, and like another character that emerges later on with it, they're all perfect. Like I don't know if I have a single thing to criticize about this film other than like when she uses a slur, it's like, oh, you're kind of taken aback.
Yeah,
That like,
but that's
we
also
wanted to root for that character because she's,
Mhm.
but then you're like, no, it's not that clean, and that just makes it even better in a way.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
also kind of a Sean Baker thing, right? Is to
Yeah.
show you kind of the rougher edges around his protagonists and
Mhm.
not necessarily give you these picture perfect heroes to root for. And you mentioned that through the casting and through the dialogue, it kind of instantly feels of a world. And I think that's something you can say about all Sean Baker's movies, is that he's able to find these people who oftentimes don't have a history of acting, who perfectly embody a certain subsection of culture or civilization or whatever. And my feeling going out of any one of his movies is like, I've never seen these people on screen before, but I instantly recognize them.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way of putting it. I think Mikey Madison is incredible in this film.
Nice.
She's great. Yeah.
Fantastic.
All but praise for Anora.
Yeah.
It's the font, right?
What was that?
It's the font.
Yeah, he's got the Sean Baker font on all his movies, that script rating.
There you go.
We got a question from Joe C in the live stream. Do you guys think that Anora will have Oscar chances now that it has won the Palm, especially considering Neon is distributing this movie, and every Palme d'Or winner except Titan has gone on to be nominated? Yeah, that is something that is notable, is that this Sean Baker film, Anora, is distributed by Neon, and it winning Palme d'Or makes it 5 years in a row that a Neon film has picked up the Palme d'Or. They just always work with these fantastic filmmakers or snatch up these movies, and they've developed this reputation. And several of those films have gone on to see some success at the Oscars. Just looking at it from the outside, I feel like Sean Baker's profile fits the profile of somebody who I could see getting into the awards discussions, right? Because a lot of times it's these filmmakers who make critically acclaimed, respected films that do decently well, but aren't necessarily huge sensations, that maybe they pick up a little bit of love on the award circuit, just as Willem Dafoe got in for Florida Project and stuff like that. And then they finally make the movie where it sort of clicks for everybody what their thing is. I wonder if this is kind of Sean Baker's moment around Anora. I wouldn't be surprised to see it go all the way. But
Yeah.
You've seen it. Would you be surprised if the Academy embraces a movie like this one, which is an anxiety attack about sex workers?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's another upset like Uncut Gems, where that one gets shut out from the Oscars. But wasn't like 3 of those winners, apart from Titan, were like nominated at the end at the Oscars as well,
Yeah,
right?
so
Triangle of Sadness was in
Parasite,
there.
Triangle of
Yeah.
Sadness.
It's like the stamp of approval.
Yeah, exactly. So Neon has a history of taking these Palme d'Or winners and then successfully pitching them as potential Oscar nominees.
I mean, I feel like this one, although I have Hitman as my number 1, this would currently be my number 2 of the year.
Sick.
I do have Anora way likelier to pick up a Best Picture nomination, to pick up maybe even a Best Director nomination. I feel like that's not outside of the picture. I would definitely give it screenplay, but the way how improvised it feels at times, I don't know if that's like, I don't know if that hinders it to be in the conversation there. But other than that, I would go for the performances too. I feel like that's unlikely, but I could definitely see it in like a directing. What wasn't like Triangle of Sadness also like directing and picture,
I
and
think
maybe
Austin picked the
screenplay?
picture. Yeah.
And then last year
That's a
with
package I could see with
Anatomy
it
of a
as well.
Fall winning.
Yeah, Anatomy of a Fall.
Yeah.
They got a good team behind it.
Definitely.
So I wouldn't be surprised if it picks up like 2 to 3 nominations at the Oscars. I would be surprised if it doesn't get anything.
Definitely. All right, so those are the award winners. I don't know if you want to quickly run through a few films that you felt like were standouts outside of what we already talked about. The story of Suleiman. Art, was this your favorite of the films that we got links for?
Hell yeah, this one was awesome.
Great,
This, yeah, this is like literally a courier who's moved in from Africa. He's a refugee, and he's got two things going on. One is just literally trying to survive. It's got this feeling that he's pretty much drowning in dry land. He's just trying to go from place to place, renting what is like an Uber account from somebody else who is a citizen. So he kind of has to trust that if he delivers these orders, he's going to get paid through them. At the same time, it's all leading up to this meeting that he's trying to have in order to be able to get citizenship. But it's a story. It's all grounded by this performance, because it's a story about him just being able to be honest with himself, because he never has any time to rest. Kind of like you guys were saying with Uncut Gems in terms of its dialogue, this is all in its pacing. The way he's trying to get from point A to point B every single time. I thought it was incredibly directed. The way that they're showcasing like every part of the city here as well was fantastic. But I would put this as one of the best performances I've seen so far this year, and easily the best of the screening links that we got from Khan.
Yeah.
Did you catch it?
Yeah, I caught it. I only have like from us displayed in Instant Regard. I only have My Sunshine above it, which I do have a bias because that was about a hockey player who then likes to do ice skating, figure skating, and about his coach who then kind of focuses on him. Great little film there, which by the way, I sat in the back row for that theater, and Hirokazu Koreeda was standing behind me for like 20 minutes as he was watching the film, and he like had his hand on my seat, and I was like,
another jury member this year, right?
And I think he wasn't for Instant Regard. He was talking to Xavier Dolan right behind me, and he was like going up to him and was like, "Oh,
First,
Koreeda, we got to talk." And I was like, "Okay." And Koreeda was like, I don't know how good his English is, but he was like, "All right, I'm here to support another Japanese film." But yeah, he was part of the jury for competition, I believe.
Nice.
Like for the Palme d'Or stuff. Yeah.
Nice. I'm gonna have to add that one.
But Suleiman, yeah, I would have picked that one as the Instant Regard winner. Ultimately, it did go to Black Dog, which was another really solid film. But yeah, that one really resonated with me as well. I think it's a great film that, it's going to be very timely, and it's well directed and well made. I don't know.
You're talking about
if anything else. Suleiman, yeah, that one's great.
How about Black Dog?
Yeah, so that one's, I guess, a bit of a smaller story. It's about like an ex-convict who is coming back to his hometown, where there's a conflict that is not resolved with the family member who he has killed, or he's responsible for killing, that he went for prison for. And there's also this epidemic problem in this town where there's a ton of stray dogs, and especially a black dog that's been going around biting people. And then like the government like basically comes together a bit to have like a group of people to capture these stray dogs. And it's about the relationship between this ex-convict and this black dog, who grow closer with each other. And I think, to me, it's ultimately like not a movie that will surprise you, which is why my rating might be a bit like lower on it. I think it's a really well directed, well performed film, especially with all of the dog stuff. Although I don't think it won the Palme d'Or. That one went to another film in Instant Regard, Who Let the Dog Bite, by Letitia Dorsch. By the way, Swiss film, I think. Yeah, but I would have given. I saw the dog as well. I snuck a photo of it. I was like standing outside. Yeah.
Sitting next to Dolan.
Sit down, Koreeda. I got to see the dog from Black Dog. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So solid film as well.
Let's shift from dogs to cows. What did you think about Holy Cow?
I thought that one was just a ton of fun. I think this was a directorial debut as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
And it's like a small story about like small town coming of age, where a young teen boy loses his dad, who has never really gotten that far at making cheese, and he gets obsessed with maybe winning a prize, but also connecting with other people in the town. It's also a bit of a romance that's going there, and he's a bit of a troublemaker that also has a ton of insecurities as well. And he often says "Holy cow," or like in French, "20 Dieu."
Yeah.
And it's like it's a bit just like a hangout film,
Yep.
and it has a ton of heart, and yeah, I connected with it quite a bit. It's
I
sweet.
thought it was decent, especially because it's like you're saying, his boys end up helping him out the most.
Oh
'Cause
yeah,
yeah,
great
as he
friendship.
tries to enter this cheese competition, like his boys are willing to sell their own stuff. They're going out on the
Yeah,
line. The relationship that he has, it's a love story, but also a lie story that's happening at the same time because
yeah.
he's using a lot of the people around him in order to be able to just get by. But yeah, there's another link that we got, and the title comes into play very well every
Mhm.
time I think they use it like 2-3 times.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about universal language. Tell me about this movie.
So this was one of the films that I feel like went over my head. That I am not the person to give a ton of input on, because I'm not Iranian, neither am I Canadian, and it takes place in Winnipeg. That is also kind of a lot of it is just like in Farsi, I think, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's in Farsi.
and I feel like this one was packed with a lot of imagery and like slight little notes, and also sometimes jokes. There's like one thing with like napkins and like so it's really funny at
The
times.
driest humor possible, yeah.
It had a great opening, the way that it's like filmed, and I think some people compared it to Roy Anderson stuff. I feel like maybe at the tableau aesthetic in parts, but not the whole way through. um I think it's solid. But I didn't really connect with it, so I got bored by it a bit. But
Yeah.
did you get links for this one as well?
Yeah, they had sent this one to us early on. I think it was like the first of the bunch that I got to check out.
Yeah.
Maybe because I saw it at home. It is very slow paced, but
Mhm.
I like the way it was shot. Just the way that they were able to capture a lot of parts of the city. It's got this really dry that I had compared it to Roy Anderson as well, because it's got this like this vignette quality of it where it's the most like absurd jokes possible. There's a teacher yelling at his students. Those students they're like coming in dressed like Groucho Marx. You got people who are like missing glasses, and then you get like a completely different story, and it's about this guy who's trying to come back home hoping that his mother remembers him. They end up intersecting, the kids come back into play. There's all these little things that happen that make it this very realized world. um, and I think the perspective of them being you said they were Iranian. I thought they were Persian. I could be mistaken there, but just the whole idea of how they're moving within Winnipeg, I think is
Yeah.
hilarious. They do this tour in the mall, and they forgot to get the permit for the permit of the permit. And I thought that that's the funniest thing, that even when you do everything right, there's still one thing that you're missing.
Yeah.
It's very weird. It's very quirky, but there's elements of it that I enjoyed. And then it starts getting very trippy at the end. Becomes this very circular story. So universal language, an interesting one, at least to catch when it comes out at home.
Nice. You alluded to this one earlier, but Ewan, tell us a little more about The Girl with the Needle.
Oh yes. Okay. So this, I think my first thoughts on Letterboxd were that people are going to hate this without having seen the film,
Ooh.
because it tackles something, I guess, rather controversial. It's based on a true story that is rather infamous, and it takes place in Copenhagen. I think after World War One, and it's about Caroline, who is pregnant but doesn't want to be pregnant. And first she meets someone, and basically is that would be a prospect of her to move up the social standings during a dire time. And it's basically taking place during a time where it's life or death for these children that they're not able to feed because they can't even feed themselves. So it then becomes a story about basically not an abortion clinic, but what's the other way? Not foster care, but giving them
Adoption
away.
agency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's and there's something darker, a darker undertone this whole film that kind of looms over the shadows in like 1918 20s Copenhagen. This one is incredibly shot. If there was a cinematography award at Gunn, I would give it to The
They
Girl
don't
with the
have one?
Needle. I don't think they have one, no.
Well, there's the like camera or which I don't know if
But
that's a cinematography, right?
That's debut feature that they give
Okay.
to someone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so then I guess not.
No, they don't. And Magnus von Horn, I saw his film Sweat that I quite liked. I think that one was a film about
Oh, okay. I
social
know Sweat.
media
Yeah,
and an influencer. And I think it's one of the films that captures that a bit more successfully. I think it's like one of the better films at doing that. There was another film about that, by the way, in competition called... and I'm blanking on it. I saw that one with Carson, by the way. That was the movie I watched with Carson on the second day at the festival. Yeah, shout out to Carson. Wild Diamond is what that one's called, which is about a 19-year-old who basically wants to become an influencer, and she does like very sexy stuff. Not really alluded to, I think, her doing actual OnlyFans. It's more about her being an influencer, and she wants to go on this reality TV show that she wants to book, and she's basically not an easy to root for character, but you can see where she's coming from. But that's like another take on social media that is okay, but it's kind of slight. It doesn't really say much and doesn't take a strong position. I think Sweat and Magnus von Horn is more successful with that. And Go with the Needle is a film that takes a rather, I guess, honest stance on depicting this real story that I don't want to spoil if you don't know, because it is a bit of like a reveal in it.
Okay.
But it gets pretty dark. It gets pretty dark. Yeah, I don't want to say much more than that, but it's gonna have a lot of people upset. And yeah, I quite liked it. This was like basically the earliest film in the festival that I could say that I really liked.
Damn.
And
cool. Did you rank it?
I did rank it. It's where did I put it? I put it at my number 6.
Oh, you got the different what's it called on it? Okay, I see.
Yeah, I changed the poster because for some of the posters it's just like them smushed together.
Yeah.
Weirdly stretched posters.
I'm very curious with this one then. Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, we just got a couple more here to hit up. Let's talk quickly about Jim's story.
Yeah, so this one was surprising in a way that I wasn't really ready for it. That surprisingly, the Gunn premiere section, which usually holds films that have some tie to France, I guess, and this one was quite good. Le Roman du Jim's story is the kid in the story that basically. There's a guy who gets into a relationship with a woman who's pregnant, and the ex is not really in the picture because he's had an affair with her. He's married and has 2 kids, 2 daughters. So he becomes the stepfather of this kid and is really evolved in his life. And later on, that ex comes back into the picture. I don't know how much it says about why that is. Following a personal tragedy, I guess that's all I gotta say. It says nice. in the log line there. And he comes back and makes everything way more complicated to what the future is with this kid who has not grown up with his actual dad as his dad, and who wants to be involved in his life, but he has a dad. And it then just goes further with that, spans over I think about like 15 to 20, no, like about like 25 years is the whole story that it takes place. And it got me quite emotional towards the end. I think it had some really beautiful moments. It's not afraid to, I guess, tackle like the gray zones of this messy relationship that they find themselves in, that I feel like isn't that uncommon, that like stuff like that sometimes happens. Found it quite good.
Nice. You got an animated movie here as well, Savages.
Yeah, so this one is there were a couple of animated films at the fest. The other one that was in competition I didn't really like that much, and then Flow, which was in Un Certain Regard, I ended up missing. But this one is made by the filmmaker who did My Life as a
Yes,
Zucchini.
sir.
And yeah, it's a Swiss film, so definitely I had to support it. And
There you go.
this movie isn't like going super deep with its characters or doing like something crazy with the animation, but the story is pretty straightforward, where it is about the preservation of a rainforest and the traditions and the family that it's basically about this young girl who hasn't grown up or got taken away early out of that traditional life of being in living in the forest, and basically ends up returning to it as it's being torn down and they're being relocated and they're fighting against it. And that's the whole film. It kind of goes back and forth, has some beautiful clay animation. And yeah, simple film that I really liked because it's an easily digestible film that you could present a kid that is not like too upsetting, but it feels like it packs it into a really digestible package. And yeah,
So maybe not quite as good as My Life as a Zucchini.
no, it's not as dark as My Life as a Zucchini as well.
What about To Live, to Die, and To Live Again?
Yeah, that one is like right along the lines of Jim's story. I think it's also another one in the Gun premiere. It's something that the French are quite good with. These like free these relationships that involve free people in a way. And
Challengers there.
it is like it had the first thing while watching it was like, oh, I gotta if I had a screenshot of this, it's like there was that thing on Twitter, right, where they like referencing the relationship with challenges, the three people involved with each other. Yeah, so it's about like these a couple that's together, they're married, they have a kid, and it's basically this photographer who comes into their lives, and it turns out that he is sick, and the guy in the relationship is bi, and there is like something of a kind of loose relationship, or at least sex, that starts happening between those two. And it goes about it in a very mature way, where it's not like about like them hiding it and then it comes out towards the end, but it's more about like how I guess they are going to deal with it, with them being kind of open to that. And then the live to die to live again part of it comes in when basically a lot of them start being affected by an illness, and it becomes really existential in a way. And a movie like that could kind of feel like it's over the top and over dramatizing that aspect, but I found it had a ton of heart. And I don't know what it is about French cinema that way, but I feel like they can tackle a lot of just like life and make a good movie out of it. They don't need a crazy premise for it all. That's just something that the French can do, and I don't see another country who's as good as it as them. And yeah, another thing that I guess yeah, is where it really shines. It says in the I guess logline as well that it's about AIDS. So I guess I'm not giving too much away there, but yeah.
All right, so we got one more movie we want to discuss from Cannes, and it's one that I think a lot of people are going to have on their radars. It is The Surfer, a Australian midnight movie starring Nicolas Cage. Who else but Nicolas Cage? Did you have a good time with this one?
Yes and no. So it's like very funny at times, but it also gets really frustrating because basically it's a movie that for 100 minutes it's just bullying Nicolas Cage over. Like it's basically Australians gaslighting him and punching him and just like being rude to him, and that's the whole film. And then there's not much more to it. Like I think that this director Lucien Finnegan has made one of the most annoying films ever with Vivarium. I don't know. I like that scream of that baby sometimes haunts me in my soul, like with the kid. It's horrible. And this movie is like that, but it's Australians, which makes it slightly more enjoyable because like Aussies, you can't be too mad at them. It's basically about him returning back to this surfing place where he grew up on. But the Aussies there are very territorial. They like basically beat everyone up who wants to surf on their spot. And he wants to buy a place to move there with his family. And it's basically him camping out this place and trying to get to surf and get back at them the whole time. And he just like deteriorates further and further into madness. And that's the whole film. It's like, but I feel like that's the filmmaker's style. It is very frustrating. It's also not as funny as this movie like this should be for me to give it a better rating. I think if it were funnier, then it would be better. But it's so much of the same thing over and over again. And Nicolas Cage can kind of carry it, but it gets very repetitive.
Fair. Well, that is Con 2024. Thank you.
In betweens. Yeah, thank you, Ewan, for filling us in on all your French adventures, the slew of movies. And yeah, as Art was saying before, if this isn't enough con talk, there's going to be plenty of that on Ewan's page for the Quiet on Set podcast. So we'll be sure to put a link to that in the description of this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I will be going over all the stuff that I guess we didn't talk about. I feel like Gun is going to stay with me for the next 2 months until I'm done with all the reviews.
Hey, but thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Hey,
on my watch list.
Real quick, I'd like to run through the 10 films I'm most looking forward to at Tribeca, because that's probably the next big festival on the radar. I'll be hitting that up in early June. And there's a bunch of movies that are playing there that I think sound really exciting. We'll go over this a bit quickly because unlike you and I haven't had the chance to see all these movies yet, but we'll be back with reviews of them in a couple weeks. But let me start out shouting out Adult Best Friends. This is a film that's in the U.S. narrative competition, and it co-stars its co-writers Katie Corwin and Delaney Buffett. They play a pair of friends who are going on a trip ostensibly going on a trip to celebrate one of their engagements, but turns out to have some alternate plans in mind in terms of staging kind of a break in their friendship. It's got some interesting cast members as well, with Mason Gooding, Zachary Quinto, Kazzy David, Casey Wilson. Seems like it could be a fun comedy as part of the Tribeca Film Festival. I'm also looking forward to this film called Darkest Miriam. This movie stars Britt Lower, who you may recognize from Apple TV Plus's Severance. It also is in the Viewpoint section of the festival, which tends to be where they place the more experimental and out there films. The thing that really caught my eye is this is executive produced by Charlie Kaufman and apparently has some of his influence on it as well. It stars Britt Lower as somebody who works at the Toronto Public Library and meets a bunch of eccentrics as she navigates her own personal grief. So I'm curious about what's going on there. Also looking forward to Firebrand. This is a film that
caught this one last year.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What did you think about it?
This was, by the way, by another director who had a film in competition this year again, Motel Destino, which I didn't like. And this one is also not. It's like a 5
great.
out of 10. It's all right. It's all right. You're not going to remember it in a couple of years.
Yeah. So Jude Law plays King Henry the Eighth. Alicia Vikander, one of his wives, his sixth wife. Some interesting actors in this one. So I don't know. Maybe I'll like it more than you, and we'll find out. This one is the North American premiere of La Cochina, which is the new film from Alonso Ruiz Palacios, who made a film that I know a lot of people really like in Güeros. I don't know if either of you have had a chance to catch Güeros, but it has a pretty good reputation. This film sees him working with Raul Briones and Rooney Mara as they play a couple in a tumultuous affair. It looks like it's shot in black and white as well. I'm curious to check this one out. Another one that premiered at a different festival that I'll be catching up with.
Hey, TIFF.
Absolutely. Kill, the Indian midnight film that, as far as I could tell, was the biggest hit in TIFF's midnight category. This is supposedly just a nonstop, brutal action film. I'm really excited for this one. I've heard it's pretty sick. Also in the midnight section is Mars. This is an animated comedy, and it comes from the Whitest Kids You Know, that comedy group, which features none other than Zach Kreger, who recently came to fame
Yes,
through his
sir.
work on what was it, Barbarian? Am I missing?
Barbarian director.
Yeah, exactly, the director of Barbarian. So he's back as a co-screenwriter on this movie. Honestly, that's my biggest pull. I liked some of the Whitest Kids You Know's sketches, so hopefully this one is funny. Probably the film that I'm most excited for, the film that I know a bunch of people are probably going to be excited for, is Sacramento. This is a movie in which Michael Angarano is the lead character. He's also the co-writer and director of this film.
Sky High?
Yeah. And he goes on a road trip with his best friend, played by Michael Cera, who's married to Kristen Stewart. And along the way, they encounter Maya Erskine. So just plenty of incredibly charming actors at the center of this one. I'm always down for a good road trip buddy comedy, and this one is playing the U.S. narrative competition. So I'm excited to see this movie. Another one I'm very curious about, though, is Slave Play, not a movie, a play. This is a documentary that is about the Tony-nominated, very provocative play written by Jeremy O. Harris called Slave Play. One of those plays that, like, once you learn what's going on, I think your brain can explode a little bit. I don't know. It was a very notable production because not only does it talk about some controversial ideas, but it would be so engaging that they would frequently do Q&As with the audience after performances. I think they were at some point doing them once a week, and they were also bringing in lots of people to try and make the show a little bit more accessible, considering that the ideas that it's dealing with. I didn't get a chance to see the play. I've talked to people who have. I'm very curious about it. This will be my dipping a toe into the world of Slave Play because I'm very curious about it. And, Jeremy O. Harris is a really interesting guy. I feel like every single film festival I go to, he's there. We saw him walk in the streets of Sundance earlier this year.
We saw him rip his pants at I forgot what the first one, early. Who? Like, probably Zola, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeremy Harris.
Yeah, so I'm very curious to see what we ultimately get here, especially considering the way that they've titled this film. I'm excited to check out Swimming Home. This is in the International Narrative Competition, and the things that jump off of the screen to me are it stars two of my favorite contemporary actors in Mackenzie Davis and Christopher Abbott. Like, that's enough to get me in the door. But the premise itself is pretty intriguing. It's about a couple that is on vacation when they find a naked stranger swimming in their pool. This is also a film that is produced outside of the U.S., and I always find it interesting when Hollywood actors attach themselves to non-American productions. So I'll definitely be checking that one out. But the last film in my 10 most anticipated films from Tribeca, I'm going with Vulcanizadora. I'm not exactly sure how I'm supposed to pronounce this one, but it is a new film from director Joel Petrakis. I don't know if either of you guys have ever seen a Joel Petrakis movie, but they are really compelling, maddening, provocative comedies. They push buttons and they star really outsider, unlikable characters at times, but they speak to a certain disposition that I think is really unique and just really silly at some points. He also is a co-star in this movie along with Joshua Burge. I don't know. I would really recommend checking out Buzzard or The Alchemist, a couple films that he's made prior to this one. But I'm hearing some good buzz on Vulcanizadora. So yeah, hopefully this one turns out to be an exciting one, and all these movies turn out to be exciting selections from Tribeca 2024.
When does it start?
I believe the first day of the festival is June 6th. So still got a little bit of time.
Right on the corner, though.
De Niro Con. I'm really upset at myself. I wanted to buy tickets to they're doing a anniversary screening of Jackie Brown with a Q&A with De Niro and Tarantino, and I slept on the tickets.
Damn.
But there's some other cool events
That's
happening.
pretty good.
So, yeah, Tribeca.
So, sounds sick. So we'll have festival coverage for that as well. But now it is time, one Oppenheimer in, to do the most important part of the show, and that's to give a shout out to the Intercutie patrons and members.
Let's do it. We always need to thank the amazing patrons who help continue to support the show, keep it what it is, ensure that we can keep doing this show. At the Academy level, they are, if my screen will load, if my internet will cooperate with me, if Simu Liu is done messing with my stream at this point. At the Academy level, they are Tushar, Cademan, Connor, Josh, May, Ricky, Joe, Wiley, Benji, and Matt. And the producer level patrons are Yuden Veer, Toon, and Brandon G. Thanks so much to all of you for your continued support of the show. Also, thank you to Shraddha, who became a member on YouTube this week. We're always happy about the people who join up with us.
Zach's cutting out, but what he said was not that we love you more if you're on YouTube.
Oh.
He's not saying that. You're not more special.
Just that we really love you if you're on YouTube. Yes. You do have a heart and custom emojis.
Yeah. Banners. Badges.
Lots of good stuff. Don't need no stinking badges, but you got them. Lots of cool stuff. You can also join up at patreon.com/intercutpod, where you get access to other cool some Intercut episodes, including our recent exclusively right now before it becomes available to the public, and an invitation to our monthly patron hangout, which is happening after the stream. We'll spend about an hour or so chatting it up with all of you, talking about the latest in movies. I think Ewan will join us so we can download all the latest from Ewan. So yeah, not too late to head over to patreon.com/intercutpod or become a member here on YouTube to join the inner circle and be one of the cool people. Haven't you always wanted to be one of the cool people?
I have. And going to Gun, I see like a lot of people who think they're the cool people. And with Intercut, you can secure that you never have to question it again. You just know.
Ewan is one of the cool people. Yeah, he's in the inner circle. He knows what it's happening. He knows what's happening. Absolutely.
Sure.
Well, to all the cool people out there. You got no cool movies coming out this week. I apologize to let y'all know. This might be the first time you're hearing about this, because every time it pops out for me, I keep wondering, is this an animation? Is this a sequel to The Little Mermaid? Disney has The Young Woman and the Sea.
Lil Naiad.
Is that what this is? Like a Naiad type?
I think it's a Naiad type movie, but it's not literally about Diane Naiad.
It takes place way earlier, like 1926.
Well, this was up on that, what was it, the CinemaCon poster, and between the Deadpools and the Planet of the Apes, man, we recognize the Sundance Ricky Dink movie coming from Jesse Eisenberg. I keep forgetting this is a thing, but yeah, I guess it's going to be a swimming movie with her. It comes from a very, Kontiki's not that bad. I'm not going to diss Kontiki, but other than that, he went under the Disney umbrella, and he has stayed under the Disney umbrella. Maybe this will be the one that pops off. We'll see. Looks like it's a decent enough cast. Stephen Graham's good. Daisy Ridley fans have a new movie with her out there, but I don't know. There's been the discussions of Spider-Boy also not being able to pop off out of anything un-Marvel for Tom Holland.
Yeah.
I think there's one Daisy Ridley movie that we like from Sundance.
Sometimes I think about dying. Yeah, although
it
did not make a big splash at all. But the people who liked it really liked it.
You're a Chaos Walking Defender. But other than that,
I am a Chaos Walking Defender.
I like Peter Rabbit, but I don't know, nothing outside of the big stuff. But other than Young Woman in the Sea, there's a TIFF pick that was released last year and is finally getting a full push out. Ezra, directed and I believe starring Tony Goodwin, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. He's made a couple movies in the past, but this would be one of his most recent ones. I saw it get kind of a heartwarming reception coming out of Toronto. Bobby Cannavale's always pretty good. I don't know if you guys have heard of the things, but that'll get a pretty decent little release.
Yeah, I've heard mostly mixed things about this one. It's sort of about an autistic child, and I think it's been pitched as kind of like a heartwarming story. It is Tony Goldwyn's, I believe, directorial debut. Do you realize Tony Goldwyn is like Hollywood royalty? That he's Goldwyn
Also,
of the Metro Goldwyn Mayer MGM Goldwyns?
that Goldwyn?
He's
He's
not
Amazon
literally
property
that
now.
Goldwyn, but he's part of that family. Yeah, he's Amazon property.
Damn. All right. Well, two things. One, he has directed a couple of other stuff.
Okay,
He's got
excuse me, I misspoke.
two things with one with Diane Lane and such. He was in Hacks though. He's like in episode 6 for this new one, and he was incredible. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it was him, unless I'm confusing him with somebody else. But he's got a very particular face. He killed it in that. He will also have Ezra out this weekend, so if you're interested, catch that. It's gonna be a very slow week in theaters. But then we got 2 streaming series. Just to highlight here, one is an Apple TV Plus that I have not caught up with, but I've heard continuously good things about it. Trying season 4, about a couple that's been trying to have a child, and I believe, spoilers, they eventually do. So then it's about trying to keep that family. My brother,
4
and
seasons
my
of trying to
sister-in-law,
have a child is kind of a lot.
they really like it. I think this is supposed to be wrapping it up, if I'm not mistaken. So I've heard pretty good things. As you can see there, very good IMDb rating. That starts streaming on May 29th over on Apple TV Plus. But it's Netflix picking up a series that you probably haven't heard much about, but it's got a pretty big actor, Benedict Cumberbatch, in this series called Eric. Maybe this is like If, but better. I don't think he's an imaginary friend, but for the most part, it's like him kind of helping a child after he had a child go missing, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and there's some like puppetry going on because he was the star of like a puppet show, I believe.
Yeah.
It's a little bit out there. It kind of feels like, If meets Wilfred or something.
Uh-huh. We'll see. What's the one with the tree? Do you remember it was like the tree came to life and helped the kid out. It came out not too
the
long
Giving
ago.
Tree?
No. It was like when a something calls or something like that. I'm blanking on what it is, but there was another one that kind of used the stories that the kid went through of this tree in order to be able to. Liam Neeson was the voice of the tree.
A monster calls.
Thank you. When a monster calls. It feels kind of like that since it's dealing with grief and how you're able to use that. But we'll see. That's the other big series that's out. But other than that, getting to our picks of the week, I am sticking with Furiosa. So if you have not seen Furiosa, do yourself a favor. Go see that in theaters. Obviously, a lot of people have been saying that it's not doing the best at the box office, but I'm hoping that it has legs. I think it's definitely worth the cinema experience. So it's definitely my number 1 pick for the week because it's going to be pretty late out there. But also, you can stay home. There was a movie that I caught at TIFF last year that I thought was pretty decent, shortlisted at the Oscars. Maybe it's because I'm a big Mads Mikkelsen fan, but Bastarden, also known as The Promised Land, where this man just tries to make something out of like something worse than The Wasteland in Dune and Mad Max. But he's trying to sprout these potatoes out there. And I thought it was a pretty decent movie. Good performances all around. As well as another film. I'm blanking on where we caught this one. Maybe you can remind me, Zach, but Flipside. Maybe also TIFF?
Yeah, I think this was a TIFF movie last year and a really interesting documentary.
Yeah.
I just got a chance to rewatch it actually this weekend about a guy who has worked for many years as a director and had a lot of false starts on different projects that he never really finished. And among those projects was a profile of this record store in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, the Flipside Records store that he never quite finished. So in a lot of ways, it's a dedication to this kind of like dying institution. It's also a movie about the creative pursuit and the difficulty and obstacles in finishing something that you've started. Mostly, I just thought it was like really endearing.
Yeah. I like the idea of him having all the documentaries you never finished. So with one big documentary, he's looking to finish them all in one go. So those would be my picks for the week. Let's go with Ewan. Ewan, you had a couple of good ones.
Yeah, I did come up with 3 myself. They all kind of tie into something that has played at a festival before. One from Cannes, one from Venice, one from South by Southwest. The first one I'm going with just came out now. I think it never got like a US release where I played in theaters, I think.
Only at festivals, I remember, yeah.
Which is a pity that no one really got. Oh, I guess it says here in Letterboxd on the 23rd of February about Dry Grasses was showing for a bit. We played it here in Switzerland as well, I remember for one weekend, we had it only for one weekend. I think we had like 6 people who ended up watching it. Really, no one showed up for this because it's 3 hours and 18 minutes. But I can tell you it's worth staying for this Turkish film from Nuri Bilge Ceylan that ended up getting the prize for best lead to Merve Distar at last year's Cannes Film Festival. And it's now streaming on the Criterion channel. And it's like one of the places, hey, sign up for the Criterion channel. You might end up watching this. And then there's a whole like unseen world of films that you don't get on any other streaming service because we only get the new stuff that gets churned out week by week, like the atlases and stuff like that of the week. But at Criterion, you get to take a look back at film history. And Criterion is on the right side of history of already taking in About Drag Races into their selection.
Between, dude, you know how everyone's combining Netflix, Apple, they're all trying to do their bundles, trying to redo cable. Mubi and Criterion got to link up.
Mubi and
and Criterion, they have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great package there, yeah.
But you're right. It's like for the new generation, it's their TCM, their classic movie or CMT, because they now also have the like randomizer one where you could just press the channel and it'll be playing whatever movie, and I think it allows you to restart it from there and all that good stuff. But it's their special features. No other streaming service is doing what they do. You can click on a movie and it's like you have the digital version of one of their discs with everything else. So,
yeah, I do have a couple of them. Like I have the whole Bergman collection, Agnes Varda. They have all of the classic Godzilla films up there. So, you know, if you don't want to purchase a box set, I got this through another supporter of the podcast, through Connor. I had to purchase it because they don't deliver it internationally. I got like the Fellini box sets. But if you don't want to splurge and get it physically, the streaming quality, I think, is really up there compared to like Apple. I think Criterion really is worth the money. And the best way to experience some of the classic films that you wouldn't find in any other place.
Sick.
And then, quick one, Hitman, still out in limited release, I guess, while that is still in theaters. But if it's not playing near you, so not in the few locations in the States, then another Richard Linklater film that premiered at South by Southwest in 2016, Everybody Wants Some, that also stars Glenn Powell, would be my other recommendation. Such a fun film. I caught this one for the first time earlier, I think this year or last year, and it was such a blast, such a great time. And really, you can see Glenn Powell, movie star, in the work, in the making. And that one, he's the most charismatic person in that movie.
For sure. All right, Zach, your 3.
All right, I'll start things off with a show that I still need to catch up on, if I'm telling the honest truth. But I really enjoy We Are Lady Parts from Nida Manzoor. It plays on Peacock here in the US. It's this really interesting show about a group of Muslim girls who form a rock band and sort of the trials and tribulations of dealing with that, with from their friends, from their family, from the people that they come across. But this is the same person who directed the film. Help me remember the Sundance comedy, action comedy she did.
Action comedy. Hold on, I'm pulling her up right now. Was it good?
It was all right.
Polite Society.
Yeah.
Right.
I think if you've seen Polite Society, like you see there's a lot of like creative energy there. I think it's a little bit more honed in We Are Lady Parts. I find it funnier than I found Polite Society. And the performances are really good here as well. So it's a fun show. It consistently kind of comes up as like some of the most underrated comedies on streaming that don't get enough attention. So give it a watch if you're looking for something new to dive into over on Peacock. If you're looking for something to watch in theaters this weekend, because there's not much to watch in theaters this weekend, but I would recommend you check out In a Violent Nature, particularly if you are a horror sicko, because this is a movie for horror sickos that is essentially told from the perspective of a Jason-like lumbering silent killer, in that the way they even shoot this movie is often just sort of long silent shots walking through nature. They even got to sound mix the movie people who previously worked in game design, because they knew they would need people who are used to creating long loops of footsteps in terms of their soundscape. But even though it's sort of like filmed like a Gus Van Sant movie, it has the bloodthirsty nature of something that you might see in something that's more Wes Craven-esque, or maybe even darker than that. Maybe it's going full Julia Ducournau in its gore, because this has got the single most the single craziest kill I think I've ever seen in a horror movie. And I don't even feel bad hyping it up like that, because it delivers. I hyped it up to our crew because I was the first one of us to see it out in Sundance, and everybody came out saying, yeah, it lives up to the hype. But there's a lot to really appreciate in this one. I think it's a pretty interesting movie. It's not going to be for everybody. It is a little bit slow, but there's some incredible peaks in this film.
It's violent.
Very, very violent. And then my last pick for the week, I'm going to continue with my recent spat of Broadway recommendations, because I just got a chance to see Enemy of the People, which stars Jeremy Strong, and I made my Broadway debut. I got really lucky. They invite for every performance about 10 people to sit on the stage for a part of a scene, and they asked me for some reason. I don't know why.
Nice.
So in between the first and second halves of the play, it's not like a full intermission, but it does this thing I had never seen before, where the actors leave the stage, a bar descends from the ceiling, and they invite the audience to come grab a free shot from the stage, which was really cool. Like, just to, watch incredible actors performing a Broadway play and then just walk onto the stage. But then I got this additional really cool experience of being invited to stay on the stage while they performed another scene, because essentially the scene immediately following this break in the show was like a town hall. So they kind of incorporate the audience into the feeling of this gathering of people. It's something that I had never quite experienced in a theatrical setting. It does that breaking the mold thing that we talked about with Megalopolis, although maybe it worked a little bit better for me here than it did for you there. I just thought it was really cool, man. Like, I got a shot of whiskey and I sat down, and then Michael Imperioli brushed up against me. He sat next to me. Jeremy Strong was 10 feet away from me. As for the play, really interesting play. This is originally a play from Henrik Ibsen that is about a scientist who discovers a deadly bacteria in the town's water supply, and the different things that happen to him as he tries to get the word out, and people who he once considered his friends turn on him when they realize the ways in which they will be negatively affected by his discovery. A really kind of classic, like, people don't want to hear the truth type of story. And using Jeremy Strong as this person who, in the center of it all, kind of hard-headedly determined to fight for reality, fight for science, and being beat up upon the way that, like, a Kendall Roy would feel beat up upon it through a season of Succession. He really pulls it off well. I thought the direction was really cool. It's also in Circle in the Square Theater, which is a theater in the round. So rather than a regular proscenium theater where all the audience is looking forward at the stage, there's audience on all four sides of the stage, and they kind of perform in a circle. So it just is a really interesting, cool experience that I had elevated by this really unique opportunity. But even if you don't ultimately get to be sitting on stage with Michael Imperioli and Victoria Pedretti, I'd highly recommend the play. I think it's really riveting, even if you're just reading it. I thought it really pulled me in.
Victoria Pedretti's in it?
Yeah, it's a stacked cast.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, she was on the other side of the stage, though. I didn't get to brush shoulders with her.
Damn. All right, that's dope.
Yeah.
Running it back from the jump, if you are going out to theaters, go see Furiosa. See it in the most premium theater that you have around you. You don't need to get a subscription service, but you will be saving cinema if you go watch this movie. I think it's definitely worth it. Another one, if you are staying at home, is The Promised Land. It was shortlisted for the Oscars last year for international films. I think it's a great performance from Mods, and I think it's worth the watch. And then a little documentary pick would be Flipside. For those of you who have always worked on a project and never finished it, don't finish the project, go watch this movie. Maybe it'll encourage you to go watch it, go and finish the stuff that you still have. out there. But those are my 3. Ewan's got.
I got About Dry Grasses streaming on the Criterion channel about a lonely and miserable school teacher being sent to the countryside in Turkey and being very unhappy for 3.5 hours, and it's great. Then the incredibly charismatic Glenn Powell gets to shine in his, I guess, biggest role to date in Hitman, out in limited release in the States. But if you can't make it out to the theater, I'd recommend you catch up with probably his biggest role that got him familiar to us for the first time in Richard Linklater's Everybody Wants Some. A ton of fun.
Nice.
Dope.
My picks for the week are the returning show We Are Lady Parts, a funny comedy with a lot of verve and energy on Peacock. The incredibly violent, gingerly paced, but quite sick in the head in a violent nature. You're not a true horror sicko unless you check this movie out. Some dastardly stuff here. But my last pick for the week is Enemy of the People. An Enemy of the People. Maybe you're lucky enough to be in New York sometime between now and the end of June. It's Tony season. It's a great time to be here watching plays. So Enemy of the People, it's really solid. It's really good. Jeremy Strong is quite a fantastic actor.
He's decent. I should have had a Strong pick because we got one for Khan. We got one here. Maybe you wrote a book.
Quick, The Big Short. Recommend The Big Short.
The Big Short. Boom. But yeah, that is all for this week's show. Thank you, Ewan, for breaking down the Cannes Film Festival for all the upcoming movies. I am excited to see a bunch of them. Nora, I think you're right. It's going to be the thing that's going to put Sean Baker on the map for a lot of people that just hasn't in the past. Furiosa having its premiere there and it being out now. Megalopolis, maybe we'll get recut. I don't know. We shall see. But other than that, you can find more from me over at LME Movies on all social media. Ewan, where can they find all your coverage?
You can find me on my own YouTube channel where you'll find short reviews coming shortly from all the films that I caught in Cannes, and then over on the Quiet on Set part. Sorry, getting caught up as we near the stage of a Scorsese cut of a film here.
Yeah.
On the Quiet on Set podcast, weekly show that we do there, and full recap and more stuff coming from Cannes there as well.
All right. And Zach.
Catch more from me at Zshevich across social media or at Multiplex Show, anywhere you find videos.
A reminder that you can listen to every episode of the Intercut podcast on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, whatever your favorite podcatcher is. You can catch the live video right here on Weekend Must Watch on youtube.com every Monday, where we talk about all the good stuff that's come out, festivals, news, music, plays, any of that good stuff. A big shout out to all the Intercuties who listen live, all of the patrons, all of the iTunes listeners who leave us that 5-star review. I think you can rate on Spotify too, wherever it is, leaving a like here, all that good stuff. We charted? Somewhere.
Yeah,
for sure.
We're always charting. We charted in Nigeria, we charted in Greece, the Czech Republic, but now we hate Czech Republic, right? Ewan. We charted in the UAE, we charted in Singapore, we charted in Portugal, we charted in Poland, Turkey, South Africa, Netherlands, Japan, Mexico, Germany, Australia, Canada, and we're actually doing all right in the United States right now. Damn,
not bad. All right. Be a part of that and help us keep charting by leaving us a comment, dropping a like, following all the socials over on Intercut Pod. Big shout out to all the Intercuties on Patreon, all the Intercuties over on our YouTube membership. We are going to, right after this, hop on a live stream and have our little post after discussion with y'all, do a little hangout. So until next time, keep watching movies. I don't know. We'll send you lasagna.
And screw the Czech Republic. All my homies hate the Czech Republic, unless you're an Intercutie.
Switzerland should have won that one.